Good morning. Welcome to the second day of the digital conference on gendered innovation. Yesterday, we attended two sessions on equality and vulnerability, as well as a keynote lecture. Today, we have two more sessions, one for sustainability, it's the first one, and one for technology, and one more keynote lecture. My name is Maria Sideri, and I come from the Department of Cultural Technology and Communication, University of the Aegean. And it's my pleasure to present the topic of the first session. The first session addresses to sustainability. Sustainable development depends on maintaining long-term economic, social, and environmental capital. In failing to exploit the potentialities and capabilities of women, countries, organizations, and communities and are underinvesting in the human capital needed to assure sustainability. On the contrary, the exploitation of women's human capital can lead to economic growth, business innovation, poverty decrease, societal well-being, among other beneficial outcomes. This has been recognized in the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals Agenda by United Nations, which highlights emphatically that gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary condition for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. So, this is the topic of our first session. In the frame of the session, we have three presentations. Our colleague from Mykolas Romeris University is unfortunately not here, so I think we have plenty of time to address our questions after its presentation, besides the discussion part that is at the end of the session. So let me present the first speakers coming from Department of Product and Systems Design Engineering, University of the Aegean, Panagiotis Kyriakoulakos and Eleftheria Hadjidimitriou. Their presentation, titled Women in Greek Animation, 2014 to 2023, towards a sustainable animation industry in Greece, examines the salient aspects of the role of women in Greek animation industry for a period of approximately 10 years. So, welcome Eleftheria, welcome Panagiotis. Thank you for being here with us. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. It's nice being here meeting you all. I'm going to share my presentation now. Okay. Is it viewable from everybody?
Everything is fine. Thank you.
Okay, good. Our title is about women in Greek animation 2014 to 2023 towards sustainable animation industry in Greece. It's a work that is done by me, Eleftheria Hadjidimitriou, and my professor Panagiotis Kyriakoulakos from the University of the Aegean. Greek animation actually is making its first steps to be transformed in a sustainable industry. Women's role in this part is quite important in this whole development.
We don't see the second slide just now. Thank you.
Okay. There is a delay, I think, a few seconds in every slide change. So women's role is quite important, as I said, in this development, since their participation in all stages of creating animation products, business roles, and managing companies in key positions. The last decade, the animation sector has experienced a prodigious growth through the emergence of new dynamic women artists, animators, and producers in Greece. Inside the country, Greek women, of course, inside the country, but also internationally. In Europe, the contributions of Greek women animators and their collaborations are efficacious, fertile, and qualitative, ranking them as players in the European audiovisual space. The first woman we present is Maria Anistopoulou. She's a leading figure in the field of Greek animation. As a director of the Anima Syros Festival, that was established in the island of Syros since 2008, she gave the boost to the festival and led it to be acknowledged worldwide. And in a few days, there will be the next Anima Syros Festival to 2024. You are welcome to watch it in the island of Syros, of course. Women's presence has been equally represented. The Anima Syros Festival has been proven to be a pioneer in securing gender equality and supporting the works of women animators, producers, and directors. Also, ASIFA International awards the best woman animator each year worldwide in the Agora section, directed by Marinetta Makriticou. In Agora, at the Anima Syros Festival, in 2023, there was also a roundtable dedicated to female creativity in creativity in animation. There will be also in the next Anima Syros Festival more roundtables also dedicated to animation from women directors and animators too. Another person, a famous woman in this field is Anastasia Manu. She is the CEO of the flourishing audiovisual production company White Fox SA. In White Fox, they use the latest technologies, 2D, 3D animation, holograms, to produce innovative audiovisual productions. Actually, the first 3D Greek animation movie, Karagios is the movie called, is one of their children. It traveled abroad in 2022 and gained a number of awards and excellent reviews. America, Great Britain, etc. More new animation projects are being prepared so that Anastasia and her company can claim a place for the Greek animation in the global arena. Moreover, inside the company, women entrepreneurship is strongly valued and many female professionals are part of her team. Christina Androulikaki is one of them. She's a fresh animator and producer, and she belongs to the team of the White Fox SA company. She directed the first Greek 3D movie, the one that we saw before in the previous slide, Karagios is the movie, which was released in 2022. And she actually gave a kickstart to the Greek animation industry abroad. Her ability to cooperate with other companies outside the country's borders has led to make Greek animation competitive abroad and gain audience outside the country's terrain. Two more women quite important in this field. It's ERUA and Efi Papa. They mainly produce short animation films and series. Specifically, ERUA is an award-winning animation director. She specializes in stop motion and 2D animation. She works as a director and animator on stop motion films and advertisements, while she has been instantly awarded from many organizations, such as the International Organization of Women in Animation. Nowadays, she is the Vice President of ASIFA Hellas since 2023, while her collaborations with other animators, other countries, and international producers is leading to creative animation products. One of them that excited the audience was the comedic stop-motion series All in a Day's Work that came out in 2023. Efi Papa is also an award-winning director and animator. Her first success was the animation film My Stuffed Granny 2014, which won 20 awards for Best Short Film. The story of her film was highlighting real social problems and touched the audience. This gave her a strong promotion and many awards. Her further productions are very creative and qualitative. In Between, for example, in 2021, and All in a Day's Work, where she cooperated with Irida Zobga, 2024, are some very successful productions. The Greek animation industry becomes prosperous with quality productions such as Effie's work. Let's see about animated documentary productions. And here, Aspasia Kazeli is a pioneer, director, freelancer, and illustrator. She mainly works in the European area of animation. She's mainly interested in animated documentary productions. The production that gave her awards and special mentions was the 6-minute short film, My Mother the Sea, on 2022. Aspasia can express many feelings through her work and impresses the audience with her unique way of presenting inner emotions. Her skills and her creative ideas led her to new promising collaborations inside and outside the country's borders. Her latest collaboration is the animated documentary Percebes in 2024, directed by 2 women Portuguese directors, Alexandra Ramirez and Laura Gonçalves. Experimental now documentary and animation by Katerina Athanasopoulos. Katerina is a Greek filmmaker and animation artist. She works both as a director and a documentary animator. She has directed a number of short films and documentaries, while she has gained awards such as the Lume Prize in 2013 for her short film Apodemy. She has touched the audience with her exceptional work by combining animation, poetry, and documentary. Katerina is taking things one step forward in 3D animation by exploring tools and notions in the field in the context of her PhD thesis in Plymouth in Great Britain. We have a lot to see from her too. And we finish with Alexandra Tagali and Michaela Deligiani. They are 2 young digital artists and animators. Together, they managed to rock the cartoon industry with their brainchild, My Superhero Husband, in 2022. It is an animation series that led them to the top of the French Alps. They won the Disney Plus Award in June 2022 at the Annecy International Film Festival. They created an exceptional, ultra-modern, creative, and life-changing project, breaking the barriers of normality, and the audience got enthusiastic by this trend. They are also involved in many European co-productions. Their innovative thinking and optic about diversity has offered them numerous awards and nominations. Greek animation industry has gained 2 promising women that enhance the indigenous culture of animation. Finally, we can say that animation in Greece is facing a growing path. Women Greek animators have a very important role. Through their productions, animation feature films, short films, miniseries, TV series, documentary animation, they gain a sustainable future. Many of them are awarded already. New projects are to show up. Their dynamic is growing. Their appearance at festivals is increasing. New collaborations are made and new creative productions are expected to come up and win more and more awards and the audience's engagement. Asifa Elas has recognized the role of women animators in Greece by presenting a tribute during the celebration of 75 years of Greek animation 2020 to 2021, both as an anthology screening in several international animation festivals and a special screening in Greek Parliament TV. In conclusion, Greek women animators contribute widely to the development of Greek animation industry, and additionally, they contribute to the international aura of Greek animation, thanks to leading figures mentioned above, and many more that are not included, of course, in this presentation. We didn't have enough time for that. By all appearances, Greek animation industry has an auspicious future where women will be holding the reins of its success. We believe that strongly. And thank you. that was my presentation. I tried to be quick, as quick as possible.
Thank you, Eleftheria. Thank you,
Okay.
Panagiotis. This is a really interesting presentation. So we have a few minutes for questions from our participants and attendees. You can either raise your hand or use the Q&A button.
Maria, just to put the context a little bit
Yes,
further,
yes, Panagiotis.
all that we presented right now comes from a workshop we organized during the last Anima Series Festival in 2023 about animation in business, business in animation, where we invited most of the women presented here to say a few words about their art and production activities. And we're astonished about the variety of their intervention, contributions, etc., in the animation industry. And that's why we started with Ellie Eleftheria, her PhD thesis on this field. And it is very interesting to say also that we have strong leading figures, but we have also a wide range of participants in the animation industry coming from women. So this is important because it appears that it gives a new trend, dynamic also in the co-production field in the animation industry in Greece, because they are the driving force of the co-productions with European, of course, but not only, with international production companies, and that's something that we will investigate further in the future. That's just for the context in the presentation.
My micro was stopped. I suppose that as other industries, animation design industry was male dominated until a few years ago. Okay, so can I ask you something? Have you realized by the conversations with the designers, the animation designers, how their gender impacts on the content they create? I'm not familiar with neither of the films or documentaries that you mentioned. So how does a woman animation design alters content in animation film? How can a woman reverses gender stereotypes and eliminates gender biases that are all over in industry, in film industry? So this is a question for either Eleftheria or Panagiotis.
As you wish, Ellie, you start or I start. From my point of view, we have a lot of interesting subjects coming from the daily life in the presentations, the animations they make, and also a lot of trends covering diversity. We have this LGBT plus project that won the Disney Plus award in Annecy in 2022. That comes from very interesting view from two very young women animators that they are reflecting on diversity. That's something that Asifa Hellas, the Greek Animation Association, acknowledges also during the tribute they made in the celebration of 75 years of Greek animation by saying that more social issues are covered by the women animators in the subjects in their productions. So even in the field of what is presented, women give a new trend in the Greek animation industry.
That's what I would also say, that they are not afraid actually to touch subjects, topics of everyday life that actually give them this boost to make their work, to emphasize on subjects that not everyone is touching. I think their sensitiveness gives us this boost to work on such things like diversity. And the result is very successful.
A comment before I give, I see Rauser has raised her hand. When my kids were at around 6 or 7 years old, I remember there was an animation called Dora the Explorer, and this was the first girl who explores the world. Normally, girls were supposed to help their mothers in their work, housework, and so on. So, Rosary, your question, please. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for your interesting presentation. I just wonder who is finance these filmmakers, who are the producers, if they are also women, or who has interest, in this type of films, who are emphasize the daily life, and also if there is any association of women filmmakers to encourage young women filmmakers, to keep going in this path. Thank you very much.
No, we don't have any Greek women association in Greece, but they are actively involved in the existing Greek animation association, and also they are part of the funding organizations in Greece, like the Greek Film Center and the National Center for Communication and Media, that they provide funding via a cash rebate mechanism, giving back to the producers 40% of the spendings in Greece, and they are also finance a part of the production costs in every production made by Greek directors and producers. But actually, I have to say that nobody in Europe can do alone. And all countries are needing co-production money. Even France, which is the leading country in animation production in Europe, they provide a scheme of 70% money coming from the national funds and 30% coming from abroad. So this is a little bit standardized right now in the European production in animation, and every country has to provide facilities and fundings for co-productions. So that's why we have a cash rebate of 40% right now in Greece. And this is done also by other countries. It's not a unique trend in Greece, but something that is standardized nowadays in Europe. And of course, women producers are in the beginning of co-production projects, and they are in the mood of financing these the projects, not only feature films, but also series, animated series.
Thank you. One more question from Katerina. Hello,
Hi.
Katerina.
Thank you. I will be short, but I have this question in mind. In general, the animation, how animated films or video games are marketing oriented most of the time. So I'm just wondering, as a video gamer myself, I too many times asked myself why this woman or man is given like that. I don't know. I noticed that most of the time in animation, women are more, physically speaking, is more like their characteristics are more intense, if I may say. So, in what extent the animation is aligning with the marketing? Let's say that this product goes to men, this product goes to women. This is like I don't know if you get my point here. So in what extent can we expect the animation to eliminate stereotypes or change the perceptions of the genders in general? Because kids, teenagers, adults they use animation in different aspects of life. So what's your opinion regarding that?
My personal opinion on that is that society is changing, and that animation is a revolutionary medium. So they can actually be very adapted to reforming things, to change things. And it's happening in the animation industry right now. They are trying to boost a little bit the mentalities and the, to change a little bit the status quo in this area. The proof is that Disney Plus awarded that an LGBT plus series that is not presenting any usual aspect of women or men. Even the superheroes are caricatured in this series. So, Ellie, I don't know what is your opinion.
What we can say is that till recently, the percentage was 30% for women and 70% of men. But this has started to change. As we saw from the presentation, women are coming up because they are quite creative, and they have found a place to show it. They have found festivals, they have found connections, networking is growing, so we can see their work. Probably they couldn't show their work before, but now they can. So they are coming closer and closer to success, and you can see it too.
And there is a global association called Women in Animation that actually organized every year in the biggest animation festival in Annecy, the symposium with the same name, Women in Animation, that is open to Greek animators also.
Thank you.
Other questions, please? No? So, you have drawn our attention. Animation has drawn our attention. Thank you for your presentation. I think this was a hopeful perspective in animation. Thank you for being with us and hope you to see in Syros.
That's great.
Or in Mytilene.
We thank you too.
Thank you. So, this is now has the time come for our second presentation. Roser Manzavera Ruiz and Estefania Cano Belen. Sorry for my pronunciation. Both from the University of Granada, Institute of Women's and Gender Studies. Our colleagues will present their work on stakeholders and digitalization process in the cases of Tanzania and Guinea-Bissau, a complex and sometimes invisible relation with women's entrepreneurs. So, the stage, Roser, the stage is yours, and we're happy to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving us this time. I'm here also with Estefania Cano, and I'm Roser Manzanera from the Department of Sociology and the Institute of Women and Gender Studies at the University of Granada. What we would like to present here is some of the preliminary results of a project, a pilot project, entitled Digital Transition, Social Cohesion and Gender Equality, Mobile Banking and Women's Digital Empowerment in Africa. So it's, as I said, it's a 2-year pilot funded by the Resilience Programs of the National Research Plan in Spain and also the Next Generation European funds. What we have been trying to look at is to understand the role of technologies, specifically the mobile banking, in the economic empowerment of women, and how these technologies are somehow compatible with local or cultural financial system that women entrepreneurs already are using. We are focused in 2 countries, in Tanzania and Guinea-Bissau, which are a completely different countries in terms of history, in terms of economy, but also in terms of internet use and internet access. Some of the figure you can see here is, for example, in Tanzania, the 72% of people own a mobile phone, while in Guinea-Bissau, the figure is only the 54.8 people own a mobile phone. So 2 completely different contexts. Also, we are going to find different environment in terms of internet accessibility. So the Tanzanian government and the private companies are implementing various initiatives to improve internet access, whereas Guinea-Bissau face greater economic and political challenges that negatively affect investment in technological infrastructure. How we have developed this research. So we were using a mixed method research, combining qualitative and quantitative approaches, exploring how mobile technology in Tanzania and Guinea-Bissau is empowered, using, perceived by women entrepreneurs to support their business activities. And we were doing specifically documentary analysis and semi-structured interviews through fieldwork research. Who were the women interviewees. We were interviewing women, small business owner, but also survival entrepreneur, opportunity entrepreneur, transitional entrepreneurs, but also women organization or women civil society organizations. Also, we interview some organization more formally constituted, like World Bank technician or United Nations technician. So in 2023, we conducted an initial fieldwork in both capital city, in Dar es Salaam and in Bissau. And the fieldwork continued in both cities in June and July this year. And we have identified different actors. We were mapping the different actors to illustrate the use, perceptions, and attitude towards digitalization process. Also, we have a preliminary design for a web platform targeting women entrepreneurs. It's like a place where women can show their products and their business in Creole and Swahili, as also a business directory. As preliminary results, we can see that the use of technologies, of course, as I said, varies from country to country due to different factors, such as the access to mobile device and the internet, the literacy levels, data package cost, and infrastructure, such as electricity. And we can see the differences among those cities. In Dar es Salaam, over the 19% of women interviewed own a smartphone, while in Bissau, only the 70% own a smartphone. So also in Bissau, the meanings of business and mobile technology are polysemic, reflecting different perspectives. So we found that state actors and international organizations often believe that women are at risk of being deceived and lack confidence in their ability to use technology effectively. In contrast, women themselves are more optimistic, seeing technology as a tool for empowerment and an opportunity. So this is different in the case of Tanzania, where a stronger digitalization process exists, and all societal actors, including women, share a generally optimistic view of technology use. So some of the preliminary results we found are also regarding about promotion of digitalization, as we see that different international organizations trying to promote digitalization processes. And in the case of Dar es Salaam, we have proactive government policies such as the National ICT Policy of 2023, and also in an early stage, we found that in 2013, we have the first national policy of ICTs, including a gender approach. Also, there are differences in mobile phone ownership, in the discourses and narratives, in the use of technologies, and also in the challenges we have found. So, for example, in Bissau, most of the women interviewed, as I said, don't have a smartphone, despite the data from the World Bank and other organizations showing a significant increase in mobile telephony and internet. However, in Dar es Salaam, most of women interviewed have a smartphone. Also, regarding discourses and narrative, there is a great disparity between the discourses of people in charge, as politicians, scientific, NGOs, and women entrepreneurs in the case of Bissau. However, in Dar es Salaam, we found that the discourse is aligned with women entrepreneurs. Regarding the use of mobile technology, we found problems with service quality, need for primary data, And in Dar es Salaam, the 90% of we have found that the 90%, 95% mobile penetration and $60 billion in mobile transfer. So as challenges in Bissau, we found that there is limited evaluation of the intensity of relationships, few accessible data, and in Dar es Salaam, there are a lot of regulations about the digital money flows and the impact of taxes. Also, regarding the saving practice, we found this local financial system, as in the case of Guinea-Bissau, called Abota, which is normally doing in cash. And in the case of Dar es Salaam, Bikoba, Upatu, another local financial system, we found that the savings are facilitated via mobile phone. So also, the use of mobile phone in Bissau is for contacting clients and suppliers. However, in Dar es Salaam is used actively for advertising on WhatsApp or Facebook. Also, generally, there is a low trust in the digital transactions in Bissau. However, in Dar es Salaam, the trust is higher. And the advertising is, as I said, rarely used in Bissau and widely used in Dar es Salaam. Regarding digital platform needs, there is a high need for platform like digitalfem.org, that is the platform we have created, due to limited existing options. So we are now in discussions and trying to collaborate with the project for support of women's and youth empowerment and financial inclusion in the cash fruits and vegetables in Guinea-Bissau. And in Dar es Salaam, there is lower need to many existing platforms facing regulatory challenges. So I would like just to introduce you this platform we have created. It's a digital tool to support and to promote women entrepreneurs in those countries, accessible in English, Portuguese, Creole, and Swahili. And as I said, we are currently forming partnership with local stakeholders to encourage more women to register and to use the site. Is something that also is worried. I mean, we are worried about this. I mean, how to involve women, how to make the environment more accessible for women, and trying to adapt technology to the local context. Also, just to finalize, we would like to remark that as part of this, or inspired in this project, we are going to have the first international conference on social science and digital humanities, cooperation, cultures, societies, and African processes of digitalization south of the Sahara, on the 17th and 18th of October, but we have an online participation for people who would like to contribute and maybe are far away and cannot be presentially in Granada. So where they can also contribute through abstract and also online presentation, as I uploading a video of the presentation. And of course, you are all invited to participate. And the deadline is on the 23rd of September this month. So what are our next steps? So we are now analyzing the fieldwork results in Bissau and Dar es Salaam. We have this conference in October to disseminate those preliminary results. And we try to also to find ways to promote this platform And also we still are continuing to disseminate information to try to get contribution from other people and feel and feedback, of course. And also we are doing some publication of those results. So thank you very much for listening us, and we hope to have feedback from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roser. Thank you, Stefania. A very interesting presentation regarding the results of your field work. And thank you for informing us about the conference. I must note that this is, I think, a very insightful work since, sorry, I had my camera closed, sorry. Sorry, this is a very interesting work because it comes from Africa, and it's a place that it's rather unexplorable. Normally we focus on women and the relation to business in West. So this is really interesting. Questions from our participants, audience? Okay. I would like to pose a question, please. So I understand that the situation is totally different in Tanzania and Guinea. Okay. Have you realized how the educational background of women in Tanzania, their participation in school or the classes they are taught, may affect the relation with technology usage, and afterwards their acceptance to use mobile phones or mobile e-banking for their business.
Thank you for your question. Would you like to know?
Yeah, my English is not good, so sorry. I will try my best. Yeah, alphabetization is a issue because in Guinea-Bissau, most of the people it doesn't have alphabetism education, so literacy, so it's more difficult to use the technology. And in the case in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, most of the women and people has literacy, so it's easier to them to use digitalization technology. So I think that issue affects in different spaces in Dar es Salaam and in Bissau.
Yeah, also, you know, young people, even if they are not educated, they are very willing to use internet, technologies. So there is a connection, but it's not determinant, the educational level. I think it's more related with age than to educational level. Yeah.
Thank you. Panagiotis has a question for you.
Hi, very interesting presentation. Thank you very much for that. Because you have access to primary data and you make a field research, do you see anything similar to the India trend of microloans dedicated to women, especially both in Tanzania and Guinea?
Well, the microcredit, you mean? Yeah, well, the situation is completely different. And also we have, you know, like, for example, in Tanzania, that in extension is 3 times Spain. You find different places, rural, urban, semi-urban, where microcredit has different impact. And we found a very successful histories about microcredit, but also a very, very you know, unsuccessful and very with a negative impact of this microcredit, you know, use. For example, because I had published some, well, long time ago, some paper about this. We compare with local ways of finance of women that in Tanzania is called upatu in the urban places, but also ¿cómo se llamaba? No. Anyway, it's another name in rural areas, but the situation is that time is a very important issue, I think, for all women around the world, you know, and to obtain a microcredit, you need to accomplish a lot of requirements, such as to have a leader, to choose a leader. You need to design a business plan. You need to get time to meet with other women. I mean, something that is not very compatible with African women life. But in the other side, you have this other informal system that you can easily participate in, because they are doing it in the marketplaces during the market days, where all of them are participating to get cash. So you don't need extra time, because including in your daily life. So, and also you don't need to to design a business plan. You can use the money for your own needs. You prioritize what do you need to pay taxes for schooling your children or to go to the hospital. So the histories are completely different depending on the place. Yeah. But thank you for your question. Yeah.
Other question? Let me take Q&A. No questions. Thank you for your presentation. It was really, really interesting. And I believe that we need some time to think about what you presented to us. It's a totally different scene from what we know in West. We all use e-banking, mobile banking, cell phones, and I think that we cannot think our lives without them. So, thank you. Stay with us.
Sorry, Maria,
yes.
Just something to add. But I think also there are similar processes that we can find in both contexts. Of course, we are talking about huge context, and we need to specify the local places. But there are some similar processes. For example, here in Spain, we have rural areas where banks are disappearing, and all people, there is a technology gap for all people who doesn't know how to use technologies. So that this is very problematic, because how they are going to participate in the banking system or, this financial system without technology, internet access, knowledge. So some process, we can find some kind of connections. Thank you.
You're totally right. This happens with old people in Greece. Old people don't know how to use mobile banking, so they have to go to the bank, or they don't know how to use their cards to pay, so they use cash. You're totally right. They're obviously a connection. Thank you so much. Stay with us. And now it's time to go to the third and last presentation for this session. Francisca is with us. Francisca, sorry, Francisca, how do I pronounce your last name?
Here.
Okay, it's rather difficult for me. So Maria and Francisca. Francisca from the from the University of Lagos. We stay in the we are in Nigeria now. So, and we're eager to hear Francisca's presentation on gendered innovation in environmental sustainability initiatives. The study investigates how gender dynamics intersect with environmental challenges. So, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, everyone. My topic, gendered innovation in environmental sustainability initiatives in Nigeria. So the crux of my paper tries to show how important it is to get women's experiences, particularly by recognizing their sex, their gender, and the intersectional analysis of where they come from. Because gendered innovation, I did give a brief definition of it by Londa Fenbinger. I hope I didn't mispronounce the name. So gendered innovation employs methods of sex, gender, and intersectional analysis to create new knowledge. It seeks to harness the creative power of this type of analysis for innovation and discovery. And for me, the central point is the aim of this is to find new knowledge and make new discoveries. And the center point of this work investigates coastal erosion in southwest Nigeria, Ondo State to be precise, in a community called Ilaje, and it also examines oil pollution in southwest Nigeria in the Niger Delta. However, this research is more like is a secondary data that I have gleaned from and I've used to build on this work. So Ilaja is a local government area in Ondo State, Nigeria, and it occupies a lowland. The primary activity, because it's a coastal area, is fishing. And at the center of this fishing trade, you have women on the economic front. The women are the ones who take care of their children, engage in subsistence and fishing. And it was discovered that there are major similarities between what the women in Ilaje community experience and what the women in the Niger Delta experience. Coastal erosion has deprived the women of access to good water. It has also it has also made, walking down to the stream pretty difficult for the women. When there's low rainfall, the women have to walk long distances, to also get fuel and clean drinking water. Ilaja women also face a very heightened patriarchal system where they cannot necessarily make financial decisions on their own. They have to be very dependent on their spouses before they make certain financial decisions. And they're also not adequately represented in politics, in decision-making. This research that was conducted by Akin Shemolu and Ulukoya visited 10 communities in the Ilaje area, and it was discovered that there's high scarcity of fresh drinking water, compelling the women to trek for long distances, and that these women and their girl children are becoming susceptible to death and diseases, particularly waterborne diseases. In the Niger Delta, oil pollution, obviously caused by oil spills, has led to the increase in lead consumption. So the farmlands and also the water bodies that have been contaminated by oil spill have increased in lead absorption, thereby causing damage to the nervous system and the human body, especially pregnant women who consume this water or who eat the crops from their farms. They are more likely to suffer miscarriages and develop anemia. The oil companies too in these communities sideline the women when there is need for general assemblies where they come to find out what they can do to better the communities. Women are also not adequately represented in the decision-making processes. because of this, I did my research to find out if there were actually women environmental initiatives that were doing something to ensure that women's voices in Nigeria are heard. And I discovered two prominent NGOs, WISE, Women Initiative for Sustainable Environment, and Women Environmental Program International. However, there are also two similarities between these two NGOs, and it is the fact that they are situated in northern Nigeria, Kaduna to be precise. And I'll just give a brief of what both of them do. So WISE actively promotes environmental education among women and youth. They train women to use renewable energy, particularly in clean cooking techniques, solar energy solutions. They encourage sustainable livelihood practices. They amplify women's voices in environmental decision making. They teach rural women climate smart agricultural techniques, and they partner with local and international organizations to promote sustainable practices and ensure environmental justice. Women Environmental Program International also does the same thing of women empowerment in environmental management and decision making, increase climate resilience in vulnerable communities through sustainable farming and climate strategies. They improve access to clean water and sanitation by also creating boreholes in communities. They promote environmental education. They raise awareness about sustainability, pollution, and climate change. They encourage economic empowerment by helping women set up small businesses, and then they influence gender-inclusive environmental policies in national and local levels. It's worthy to note that Women Environmental Program International, even though it's situated in Nigeria, it does have tentacles that spread even outside Nigeria to Togo, Burkina Faso. And at the core of all that they do is they ensure environmental sustainability is achieved, women empowerment, and community development. However, like I said, it was discovered that most of their activities revolve within the North. Now, my research brings me to think of, okay, before we go to the gendered innovation solutions, I create like a little map to see the impact of each of these organizations. And for WISE, statistics show that they have empowered 50,000 individuals with environmental education and advocacy. They've also planted trees. They've done reforestation efforts by planting 20,000 trees. They've also provided water and sanitation to 10,000 people. They've empowered 4,000 women through sustained livelihoods training and also set up businesses for these women. They've also trained women farmers in smart agricultural techniques that they need. 2,000 homes have also benefited from clean cooking stoves. Also, the Women Environmental Program has planted about 50,000 trees too. 10,000 plus women have been trained in environmental management. 10,000 people have been provided with clean water and sanitation in different communities in the North. Women and youth have also been empowered through sustainable livelihood programs, and 2,005 households have also been provided with renewable energy solutions. So having seen that they've done so much work in the North, it brings me to realize that the West and the southern part of Nigeria still have a long way to go in terms of environmental sustainability initiatives that are actually practical and that are doing the work. And I decided to investigate by studying the national gender policy and realizing that there are innovative solutions, even if they're not maybe new, but I mean, they are refurbished, that can actually help to enhance Nigeria's environmental sustainability efforts. And one of them is strengthening the national gender policy. So the national gender policy document itself was, revised in 2020. The last time was in 2006. So there was a very long gap between the time it was revised. And as at the time, before the time it was revised, it was still working with the Millennium Development Goals. not until its revision in 2020 that made it now capture the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the things that is important to do about the national gender policy is to ensure that it's not about creating these policies, but to actually create conditions that make these policies work. So I advise that there's monitoring and evaluation frameworks that are established and that are enforced to ensure that there's a good atmosphere that actually encourages not just gender equality, but economic growth and environmental sustainability. I also suggest that there's more emphasis to women's economic empowerment. When you look at what the women in Ilaje communities and the women in the Niger Delta go through, you see that they operate from a disadvantaged economic because even until making economic decisions for themselves, they have to wait for their partners before they make very informed choices. And one of such ways to limit this is to bring, cooperatives and resources down to women in coastal and rural areas so that they're not marginalized and they're not left behind. Also, it's important to also integrate gender in climate change policies. It was discovered in the activities of WISE and of WEP that they seem to put women at the forefront. Even the men also build capacity for these women to actually participate. So when they come to the communities to give lectures on the environment or on even better ways to empower themselves, their husbands left them to attend these meetings, and which shows that there's mutual support over there. There's also need for enhanced representation in decision making, opening up opportunities for women to participate in leadership and engaging the boy child, because the whole idea of environmental sustainability, right, is to create something that future generations can have access to. And it's important that both the boy child and the girl child are carried along. And then at the end, I also suggest that public awareness campaigns should also be implemented and encouraged. And one of such NGOs doing that is is Pathfinder International with the I Commit campaign, which encourages gender equality and environmental sustainability. They roll out programs and they're in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, such that it opens them up to a larger access to meet women who actually need these activities. So, in summary, I established that the women in Ondo State and women in Niger Delta who are experiencing oil pollution and coastal erosion are challenged by an economic factor, an educational factor, patriarchal norms, cultural demands, and political factor. And one of the cultural demands for women in the Niger Delta is that women cannot own land. And if a woman acquires agency where she wants to purchase land, she cannot on her own go to purchase land. She has to use a man as a frontier to get access to land. So I suggest gendered innovative solutions, having recognized that women need this help, is recognition of women's roles, gender mainstreaming, empowerment through education and training, strengthening women's cooperatives, addressing barriers to participation, community-based initiatives, and utilizing indigenous knowledge systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francisca. Very, very interesting, the findings from Nigeria. May I ask if someone of our participants wants Panayotis? Oh, many questions. Thank you. Panayotis first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Francisca, for this presentation. I noticed that you focused on the southwest of the country, and Nigeria is a very big country, and it seems that the south and the north are very different. So,
yes.
Do you think that the policies that are adequate for the country are more decentralized, regional, or you can have a national policy on this sustainability issues.
Okay, so Nigeria operates what we call like a federalism, and there's supposed to be like decentralization to the regions. However, when you look at the development strides, you realize that sometimes major attention goes to the north. And the reason is they carry the statistics that you have larger people in the north, and there's a high statistics of illiteracy, and there's a larger disadvantage, so to speak. But sometimes that do I call it preferential treatment, also marginalizes other people. And when you look back at it, for instance, the coastal erosion in Ilaje, you have Nigerians still depending on the economic resources of the coastal areas in Ilaje. You have Nigeria depending on oil. In fact, Nigeria's major export is oil. So if the areas where we draw our resources are not managed, properly, then it has a larger effect on the nation as a whole.
Okay, just by curiosity, where the city of Abuja is situated in the south or
it's
the
considered
north?
The north.
Thank you. Now, Venetia, it's your turn. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I have one clarifying question about these two NGOs, and I was wondering whether you could tell us a bit more about WISE and WEP, when they have been established, how they are funded, who participates, who is in the steering board, etc. And the other question is related to reproduction, because we know that nowadays Nigeria has one of the largest fertility rates globally. And I'm wondering whether women in your research somehow relate pollution and the worries about the environment with reproduction and bringing their children in this world.
Okay, so WISE was founded in 2006 or so, thereabout, and then WEP has been there, say, early 1999. And for WEP, it's a community of about 7 women who came together to found the organization. And in terms of can you give me what you said concerning reproduction and how it ties to the question, sorry.
Yes, I repeated that on the one hand, we know that Nigeria has one of the largest fertility rates. Is that right?
Well,
no, I know that from because my interest is in kinship and the family and gender. So I know that now Nigeria is in the forefront of fertility rates. So my question would be whether they somehow connect our worry about these environmental issues in relation to reproduction, to fertility, to the bringing up of children.
Regarding reproduction and how Nigeria seems to have like a very high rate, I think that it's also a cultural thing. Because here in Africa, there's the belief that children are a gift from God. So, I mean, you cannot take out a child, regardless of if you can cater for their responsibilities. And some communities here in Nigeria, in Africa, to believe that the more children you have, the more blessed you have, the more blessed you are, and the more capable you are to actually manage your resources. But however, in the Niger Delta, the challenge with having more kids is that, of course, there's increased exposure to illnesses, especially in communities that are polluted by oil. And kids are susceptible to joining, groups that they ought to have no business with. I'll give you an example: militancy in the Niger Delta. Many of the kids that are uncatered for find themselves joining, this militia who agitate for better resources for their communities. So yeah, I think that it does have its correlation with issues of oil pollution, environmental management.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And now it's Rosel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Francisca, for your presentation. Very interesting. We were doing like a gender and development situational analysis in 2009, so a long time ago, and we found also too many civil society organizations of women fighting against pollution and environmental and for the environmental issues. But what and we went also to Abuja to interview some people in ECOWAS. But what I would like to ask you is how do you think is affecting all those activities that civil society organization of women are doing in the communities to gender relations? Because in the case of Tanzania, that is the case that I better know because I was doing my field work there. I remember one of the projects was similar than the one you present here. And the impact was the impact in plural were quite different depending on the household gender relations. I mean, in the case, for example, of household where women and men were more, have equal sharing, the impact were much more positive. But in the case where the sharings were not equally shared, or the incomes or also the task were in the household with greater inequalities, the impact were quite negative because there were a competition for better seeds, for better land, where irrigation were there. So I don't know if you have noticed something about that, about the impact in gender relation, if those measures of those organizations are how are impacting in gender relation in the different communities where they are working. And thank you also for bringing as this indigenous knowledge system, because I think are very important in order to understand the African context. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosa. Just a little. So I remember that I talked about how it starts from the home front, the imbalance, right? The gender imbalance starts from the home front, where women, I don't want to also generalize to certain women in certain communities, right, relegated, right? And the Ilaje community and some communities in the Niger Delta, you see it happen there where the woman can't speak in the home front. And so even if she's sick, she still has to go out to engage in household practices that will feed the family. I'm going to bring a personal experience into it. I served in the Niger Delta. There's something called the National Youth Service in Nigeria here. I did a compulsory National Youth Service across in the riverine area in the Niger Delta. And I saw firsthand how the women would go to the stream very early in the morning, 5 a.m., to go and fish. And then they come back to meet their husbands sitting in front of the house drinking. And that's the dynamic. They are usually the first to notice what happens when the rivers are polluted. They're usually the first to cry out for help. When I suffered a fire burn across water, I had no access to healthcare. But when like I said, when the oil companies come to find out what's wrong and how they can make reparations, who do they call to the meetings? They call the men. They do not call the women. So it does start from the home front. And yes, there are certain organizations that are actually working to reduce that imbalance or totally eradicate it. But for the sake of my research, I really was not so into the gender inequality mainstream. I was more concerned about investigating women environmental initiatives that are actually doing the work of environmental management. So, yeah.
Thank you, Francisca. Sorry, just one thing. Maybe also, like, I don't know, a recommendation, but I remember also in Botswana, they were having a very, very good initiatives working with men, with their masculinities definition. So I don't know if they are doing something like that with men. I think it's very difficult, and of course more in rural areas. But I don't know if those organizations or as recommendation also, maybe adding this working with males, because I think this is also an important issue to trying to change them, to be aware, about the inequalities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Francisca, it was very, very interesting. And this is obvious by the number of questions addressed to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have a few minutes, so let me summarize regarding the session we attended. This was a session on gender and sustainability, and we had the pleasure to attend 3 different aspects. One regarding gender and women's participation in the animation industry. One related to gender, one relating gender to entrepreneurship, and the other relating gender to environmental challenges. So I think we have catch all 3 aspects of sustainable development, meaning social sustainability, economic sustainability, and environmental. If someone of the attendees or the participants wants to add. Okay, so no questions. Okay, thank you. So it's it's 11:40 time in Greece, so it means it's 10:40 Central European time. We have a break, and then the next speaker, a keynote speaker, Lilian Mitru from the University of the Aegean, at 11:20 Central European time, 12:20 time in Greece. So it's a bit confusing with times, but we can manage that. So a break, and please stay with us at 12:20. Thank you. Thank you. We are back with our keynote lecture. So I would like to introduce Professor Lilian Mitru, professor at the Department of Information and Communication Systems Engineering of the University of the Aegean, and president of the Institute for Privacy, Personal Data and Technology. Professor Mitru has served as a member of the Hellenic Personal Data Protection Authority from 19 1999 to 2003, and as a member of the National Council for Radio and Television from November 2016 till September 2023. She has been, and she's a chairman or member of several legislative committees, a member of scientific and editorial committees of conferences, and the editorial director of the journal Technology and Communication Law, if I'm not mistaken. She has participated in many research projects at national and international level, and she has written books and scientific articles. The topic of her lecture is AI and gender biases, and we will attend this in a few minutes. So, Professor Mitriou, thank you for being with us. The stage is all yours.
Thank you for your invitation and the introduction, Maria. It's a very good opportunity to discuss about these interesting topics and meet good friends from other departments and islands, even online. I'll try to share my screen as PowerPoint. If it's not the case, then I'll try to upload the PDF version, okay? You see it?
Perfect, perfect.
Okay, okay. Then I'll try to. Okay. Let me start by saying that I am a lawyer. Of course, I'm teaching information law, data protection law at the Department of Information Communication Systems Engineering, but I'm a lawyer, and I cannot avoid to focus more or less on institutional points of view and on legal points of view. However, I will try to avoid to overlap with the other presentations that follow, and they are also very specific. My topic is about AI and gender biases, but I have to introduce, I think it's also introductory lecture, to introduce the audience and the participants to this workshop to some information concerning AI Act, and what we consider as main principles governing AI. What is an AI actually? It's a hype, okay? It's a motto. It's the word of the year in last year, at least in 23. What we understand, AI, artificial intelligence, is an umbrella term. It remains an essentially contested concept, and actually there is no universally accepted definition. The human-centric approach, which is very interesting considering also the whole discussion about ChatGPT and the other generative AI models, etc., is this human-centric definition what is actually represented by the Turing test, which is passed by a computer, may be passed by a computer, as soon as it performs a task that would otherwise require human intelligence. UNESCO considers AI systems as technological systems which have the capacity to process information in a way that resembles intelligent behavior. In the AI Act is a regulation adopted a month ago, adopted 2 months ago, and published a month ago, and will be entered into force and will be implemented gradually after 6 months from, let's say, 6 months from now. In this binding European legislation, an AI system is a machine-based system which is designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy. Autonomy is a very crucial term, and that may exhibit adaptiveness after deployment, and that, interesting also, for explicit or implicit objectives infers from the input it receives. Input is also a very important factor considering the AI systems, how to generate outputs such as prediction, content, recommendations, or decisions that can influence physical or virtual environments. The key elements are the words infer and especially the word autonomy, which differentiate an AI system from any other software where the output is predetermined. This is the if-then logic. This definition adopted by the European Union and also by the OECD is intentionally brought to ensure that the legislation will be technology independent or technology neutral and future-proof, as we used to say. Of course, AI is not a novelty. It's an old lady of 70 years old, but it's important to keep in mind that major advances that have taken place recently have revitalized this interest concerning AI. These advances are referring to the increase of computational power and the availability of data. Think about data, big data, and that can be analyzed by algorithmic technologies. Artificial intelligence has the typical characteristics of an emerging technology, which are the radical novelty, relatively fast growth, prominent impact, and uncertainty and ambiguity. Of course, all these technologies are very often associated with hypes, great expectation, but also fears, concerns, and in any case, there are turning points in society because they represent new phases of growth and change. They offer new applications, business models, decision-making tools, and they offer or seek or aim at offering answers while increasing the accuracy of decision making. Of course, undeniable is also the influence on social values and principles and rights, and with these rights, I mean mainly fundamental rights. And of course, we could discuss for the next days about entering in the new phase of digital or information society, or let's say digital or information capitalism, or as Zuboff has expressed it very in a perfect way, surveillance capitalism. The main discussion, this is also a discussion concerning the existence of biases and the way we can face biases, is if AI is a value neutral or a value laden concept, technology. Of course, algorithms as methods to reach an output based on input as such could be defined as a neutral technology. On the other side, these technologies, every technology, is the result of human activities and determinations. And of course, as such, the shift of personal interests and values from the human, from the individual, from the person to the algorithmic realm is a choice. And this is a choice which is able to affect society and impact on constitutional values and, more precisely, fundamental rights and democratic values. I like to repeat, and I do it often, the words of Norbert Wiener, from the father of information theory, who said that we had better be quite sure that the purpose put into the machine is the purpose which we really desire. And this is very important, considering also the element of autonomy of the AI systems. Of course, the neutrality of algorithms is a myth, because their creators, consciously or unintentionally, transfer their own value systems into these machines, let's say. And of course, technology is not neutral. It is based on human programming, on various commercial, public, whatever, social interests. And of course, all the systems are based and related to human behavior, which in its turn may reflect and exacerbate various types of social biases. And of course, AI has a lot of implications and interferences into values and fundamental rights. It may lead to breaches of fundamental rights, including the rights to freedom of expression. Think about the algorithms who moderate the content, the online content on platforms and social networks. Freedom of assembly, human dignity, non-discrimination based on sex, racial, or ethnic origin, very important in our discussion, religion or belief, disabilities, age or sexual orientation, protection of personal data, private life, the right to an effective judicial remedy, and fair trial. And of course, also consumer protection. These risks to fundamental rights and democracy have to be considered in the context of the lack of transparency, which is an inherent element of the functioning of many AI or automated decision-making processes and systems. The potential spread and extent of these systems may challenge democratic systems due to the difficulty, among others, of course, to the difficulty, and I would say, if not impossibility, of understanding decisions that are made by these systems that affect individual rights and freedoms. An important development is that these predictive models, especially uses of AI systems for predictions, these predictive models have already produced biased results and inaccurate outputs, which have led to discriminatory results. Let me start let's say, the legal social part of my presentation by emphasizing, by underlying the fundamentals and principles that have been adopted by the European Union, not in a binding way. It's the guidelines for trustworthy AI that have been presented by the high-level expert group 5 years ago. These fundamentals refer to human dignity and freedom, respect for democracy, justice, and the rule of law, and equality, non-discrimination, solidarity, very important. You can already, you know it already, and principles that refer to human autonomy, prevention of harm, fairness, and explicability. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to discuss every of these principles and the requirements that derive therefrom, but I would like to focus on some elements of these principles. A first one refers to the equality, non-discrimination, and solidarity. What means equality? It includes, it is oriented also at rights of persons at risk of exclusion. That means equal respect for the moral worth and dignity of all human beings has to be ensured. And this requirement reflects exactly that all principles and fundamentals of fair and trustworthy AI are interlinked, are intertwined with each other, and have to be deployed, have to be implemented and respected in a coherent way. what does it mean? Does it mean that beyond non-discrimination, equality entails that the system's operation should not generate unfairly biased outputs. That means, for example, that the data used to train AI systems should be as inclusive as possible and representing a different population or social groups. That means also that adequate respect for potentially vulnerable persons and groups, such as workers, women, persons with disabilities, ethnic minorities, children, consumers, which are also not so powerful like the companies, or other persons or groups at risk of exclusion should be taken into consideration. Another important principle is fairness, also a broad ethical principle, and there is a need to achieve, means the need to achieve substantial equality to prevent biases, information, process, and product, prevent discrimination, and avoid widening socioeconomic and educational gaps. Development, deployment, and use of AI systems must be fair, and of course, fairness is in a way intuitively understood mainly as the lack of biased differential treatment. It is important to keep in mind the elements of diversity and non-discrimination, avoidance of unfair biases, and this has also a substantial, it has also procedural dimension. The substantial dimension of fairness includes ensuring equal and just distribution of both benefits and costs of AI, and ensuring that individuals and groups are free from unfair bias, discrimination, and stigmatization. A related principle is the prevention of harm. Systems should not cause or exacerbate harm or otherwise adversely affect human beings. This may remind us to the Asimov laws of robotic. Protection of human, that means also protection of human dignity, mental, physical integrity, and AI must be technically robust, but it should be ensured that they are not open to malicious use, that means threats, attacks, poisoning of the data used for the analysis. Another very important element is the obscurity, the lack of transparency that characterizes such systems. We speak about black boxes, and black boxes and the lack of transparency and the lack of understanding and the lack of explainability or explicability relate in a very strict way with the problem of biases. Processes need to be transparent. The capabilities and purposes of AI systems must be openly communicated, and decisions must be explainable to persons that are directly or indirectly affected, but also they must be transparent in order to be subject to public scrutiny and accountability. And explanation, what we understand as explanation, why a model has generated, based on which factors, on which elements, on which processes, has generated a particular output or decision. This explanation is not always possible. It's not always easy to understand. It is also dependent on the context, the severity of the consequences, and the harms that may be derived therefrom. And of course, it remains, I think I must say, one of the main, if not the main problem how to reconcile, how to strike a balance between the functioning of the good functioning of NA system and explicability and transparency. What is bias? Bias is, in general, an inclination of prejudice towards or against a person or a group, an object, a position. They can be good or bad. They can be intentional or unintentional. We can discuss about social biases, that means failures to properly account for historical or current inequalities in society in the activities of the life cycle of artificial intelligence systems, included designing and training models, which is very important. The training of models, the training of AI systems, including the large language models, is very important with regard to social biases or the reproduction of social biases. Technical biases, they occur from problems in applying machine learning that results in additional biases that may be not present at the data that have been used to train the system or make decisions. There are many types of biases that can relate to the data collected, if the data are not accurate, if they are not representing the group that they refer to, the data generated to feed an AI model, representation biases, biases related to the design of a model, to the factors that we have chosen, and the importance that we put on these factors, and the training bias related to deployment. Unfortunately, and this is a lack, the AI Act does not define biases or discuss how to measure it. It mentions biases, but it lacks examples, even in the recitals, of positive or desirable biases, which is also the positive of affirmative actions, bias related to the ground truth, relation to health, or how bias may differ in different cultures. How can biases arise? Data sets used by AI systems, we have already mentioned it, both for training and operation, may suffer from the inclusion of inaccurate, inadvertent historic bias, incomplete or bad governance models. Potential biases inherent in the training data sets used, that means data sets inaccurate, not sufficiently representative, or in the aggregation of evaluation of data. We can also identify biases, that means where groups are inappropriately combined, or if benchmark data used to compare the model to other models does not represent the population that the model would serve. For example, in the context of social security, for example, to decide about some profits, some privilege, some support measures for groups that are at risk of exclusion, for example. Not all biases are the result of low quality of data. The design of the artifacts it's an accumulation of, maybe an accumulation of biased choices ranging exactly from the inputs or the goals that we have set for an AI system and its outputs. These biases may reflect the biases of the developers due to the conscious or unconscious stereotypes or biases that they have. They may build in the model upon which the systems are built. Of course, we may have also biases when systems are implemented in the real world. These biases have severe and far-reaching impacts and implications. One of the most reported impacts is the impact of discrimination, the right of the equal treatment. Algorithmic processes and automated decision-making may reinforce and widen social inequalities, exactly because the same key functionalities that lead to more accurate and informed decision may also perpetuate, and this is a major problem, bias and discrimination. The continuation of such biases could lead to unintended indirect prejudice and discrimination against certain groups of people and exacerbating prejudice and marginalization. They can enlarge also the group of impacted people because the analysis and the outputs, in many cases, it's based on shared characteristics of a population. When these systems look for correlation, they are based on shared characteristics with other cases, which may lead to unacceptable biases and to a group, let's say, to face a problem as a group and not focusing on any individual case. About gender biases. Gender biases have been identified in many contexts. Facial and speech recognition, performing worse for women, especially in some groups. Automating decision-making that exacerbates the possibility for multiple discrimination based on sex, gender, etc. Predictive justice that may also lead to discrimination against women, and also predictive health based on gender-biased data. Some diseases, in some cases, not based on scientific elements, have been characterized as female or male. Another problem is this, that in the inherited biases in machine learned content moderation on platforms and social media, and it may present high or higher tolerance for sexism or sexist hate speech. This is also a kind of gender discrimination, gender biases. Another problem is, another issue is that gender-oriented behavioral targeted marketing and targeted advertising may also perpetuate gender stereotypes. We must keep in mind that decision-making with regard to pricing has evolved to a cross-functional team activity that drives strategic value. It adopts algorithmic price-setting models, and it can differentiate the results, the prices, to situational context of algorithmic personalized pricing, thus leading also to discrimination. And we have also noticed practices of pricing based on sex and gender. Another case is the AI assistants. You have already in mind that Siri, Alexa, Cortana, Google Assistants are women, are female. Various customer-facing service robots, automated hotel staff, avatars, waiters, bartenders, security guards, they feature gender names, voices, and appearances. Siri, Alexa are female, and they have at least female-sounding voices. These AI bots and voice assistants, they can also promote unfair gender stereotypes, and we have this tightrope effect. That means where women are expected to assume traditionally feminine qualities to be liked, but also masculine qualities to be promoted if this is maybe the case. And these gender-related stereotypes shape expectations for women also in the workplace. And now I'm coming to the workplace with regard to women. The discrimination and biases in the context of use of AI in the workplace is not only a gender problem. It's a general problem. It may be worse for women, for example, but it's a general problem. In the case of gendered bias, the lack of participation or the underrepresentation of women exacerbates the potential gender biases and may exclude them for powerful sectors or powerful positions. These AI systems that assess, predict performance of employees' work, etc., they could jeopardize the right to equal opportunities, equal treatment in matters of employment and occupation, and major issues are posed with regard to job screening and use of AI system in recruitment. We have already information about hiring algorithms that have been found that may penalize applicants for having a Black-sounding name. Some algorithms alter job candidate scores because they have based on whether candidates have a bookshelf in the background or wear glasses or a headscarf, or based on the natural language analysis of CVs. And this is another very important issue concerning the use of AI system for emotion recognition in the workplace, which in the AI Act is a prohibited action, but it has exceptions, and these exceptions may be misused. Let me show here, I know that I have only 5 minutes left. Let me show here a slide presented in a presentation in a conference that I have attended last year concerning the bias detection. Even if there is no indication of sex, of gender in the application, in the CV, there can be an analysis of the natural language by AI systems that may reflect, may identify female features. For example, somebody has, I enjoy knitting and yoga in my spare time. And the assessment is the model closely associates knitting and yoga to women. And this may therefore infer that the candidate is a woman, and perhaps that may be used to make an unfair decision. I'm referring also to the Amazon case, and then I have to stop, I'm afraid, because I have already misused the time left.
You have some time left. It's a break next, so we can...
Okay. Maria, tell me if I have to...
Okay, thank you.
When I have 2 minutes left, please let me know. Okay. The other very famous case is the Amazon case. The Amazon case is a case already 7 or 9 years ago. Many large companies have already used AI tools in recruitment. Amazon has built a recruitment program to automate its search for talents. Amazon has trained this program on CVs, resumes, assessments submitted over a 10-year period. This system did not simply filter out women. It looked at characteristics of successful employees based on typical wordings, assessments, phrasing, filtered TV, and it has filtered CVs that did not show these characteristics. The outcome, the result was that Amazon's recruitment AI favored men over women with the same CV, actually. with the same background, scientific and work background, because it was trained on profiles of successful Amazon employees in the past, which happened to be men, as women were underrepresented and unfortunately they remain underrepresented in the technology sector. In this case, the AI system has replicated the bias in the datasets, in which most successful job applicants over the past 10 years had been male. And it perpetuates the past in the future. This is one of the main problems. Another, let's say, Gretchen question, Gretchen Frage, as we say in German, a very elementary question is, okay, AI may be biased or unfair, but people may also, humans may be also biased. Are humans bias-free? Bias and discrimination are, of course, inherent risks of any societal or economic activity. And human decision-making, as I notice here, is not immune to mistakes, prejudices, and biases. But the same bias, when present in AI systems, could have a much larger effect, affecting and discriminating more or many people without the social control and other mechanisms that may, this is not always the case, human behavior. While human error affects only individual cases, poor, biased design, biased elements, biased data may affect all people in the same or similar circumstances, because AI tools are applied indiscriminately to a whole series of cases, and this is also another problem, the lack of personalized treatment of the cases. Private and public organizations, they often adopt these algorithms, arguing, and I'm hearing often this argument, they are more objective. They don't have headers. They are not biased. They have not connect. I mentioned here an example of a Swedish municipality which 5 years ago has started experimenting with the robot Tengai for the recruitment process. Tengai has conducted the interviews, and it was developed with them to make this recruitment process less biased than traditional interview practices. I don't like women, I don't like fat women, I don't like older women. Okay. Tengai had no perception about the person that the interviewed person was a woman or a man or fat or tall or short or blonde or whatever. 5 years later, the assessment is that Tengai has made the selection and hiring process faster, with this cheaper, and more unbiased. It's interesting to see the positive impact. A way to mitigate the impact of biases while using AI systems is the human oversight intervention. Is a way to ensure accuracy and fairness and mitigate the negative impact of the uses of AI, including biases and discrimination risks. Article 14, perhaps a mistake here, 14 or 15, I'm not sure, requires that explaining why an AI system, a high-risk AI system, took a certain decision should help the human overseeing the system to evaluate whether to trust the suggestion and decide not to use the higher risk AI system or otherwise disregard, override, or reverse its input. The European Data Protection Board, that means the representative of the data protection authorities in the EU and the European Data Protection Supervisor, have asked for meaningful human intervention that may be carried out only by someone who has the authority and competence to change this decision. It's not so simple. It's not so simple because we have the problem of automation biases. This is something else. It's not social, it's not technical biases. What does it mean with automation or confirmation biases? When humans may place, justify, or say, in more cases, unjustified trust in machines and technological artifacts, or situations where they select information that support their own concepts, perceptions, attitudes, views. In every case, ignoring perhaps their own potentially contradictory judgment, and in the end, validating algorithmic outputs without questioning or without being able to question the output of an AI system. Due to these automation biases, people, overseers, may overestimate an AI's accuracy and consistency. Therefore, it's important to design the human-AI interface in a way that can encourage cognitive involvement in the task. I'm not so optimistic because all these outputs, biased or not, gender biased or not, in many cases, they are trained, they are processed with such a vast volume of data, correlations, inferences, that is difficult to understand, explain, and have an overview. I'm afraid that this human in the loop, man in the loop, or women in the loop model may result into a kind of legitimization of the use of an AI system because we have inherent information and cognitive asymmetries. Of course, the legal order, the legal framework tries to face all these problems. The Article 15 of the AI Act asks that such systems will be resilient as possible regarding errors, faults, or inconsistencies that may occur within the system or the environment in which they operate, in particular to the interaction with natural persons, and they have to reduce they have to be developed in such a way to eliminate or reduce as far as possible. Of course, you can recognize here the regulatory language, the regulatory wording used to find a balance between competing interests and perceptions. Reduce, eliminate, or reduce as far as possible the risk of possibly biased outputs influencing input for future operations. We have a similar provision in the new BACT. Some days ago, it's open to signatures the Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence, which includes also fundamental principles, the first ever international legally binding. It's coming from the Council of Europe, but many countries, major countries as the US, or Japan, etc., have also participate to the elaboration and to the signature of this convention. Activities within the life cycle of AI system must comply with fundamental principles, including equality of non-discrimination, transparency, accountability, reliability, and Article 10 provides for each party, I mean the signatory parties, the member states, to adopt or maintain measures with a view to ensuring that activities within the life cycle of the systems respect equality, including gender equality and the prohibition of discrimination as provided under applicable law. How to address bias? I have copied here the answers of the European Commission. It's interesting. It's very important to not create or reproduce biases. Properly designed or used AI system can contribute to reduce biases and existing structural discrimination, and in this way they may lead to more equitable and non-discriminatory decisions. The example, user recruitment. They may be technically robust to guarantee that technology is fit for purpose, and false positive or negative results. This is very important also with content moderation or on platforms and social media, etc., are not disproportionately affecting protected groups based on racial or ethnic origin, sex, age, etc. They need to be trained and tested with sufficiently representative data sets to minimize, I remind you the case of Amazon, the risk of unfair biases embedded in the model, and ensure that this can be addressed through appropriate bias detection, correction, and other measures. And of course, traceability, explainability, auditability, they have to be traceable, auditable, that ensuring that appropriate documentation is kept. This is the headers of the developers, and they have to be monitored in order to address such risks. Let me finish by saying that the Greek legislator has 2 years ago adopted in the law 4961, whatever, 4961, some very interesting provisions concerning the use of the AI system. A set of these provisions refers to public bodies which are subject to obligations of providing for a legal basis for the use of AI systems. There must be a statute, a law, a legal provision for being able to use an AI system that makes decisions or support decisions. Conducting algorithmic impact assessment, that means to assess the impact of the use of the system, not only on fundamental rights, but the social impact, economics impact, etc., or to ensure operational transparency and legislation, and important also for the gender biases. In the employment context, prior to the use of an AI system, which may affect the decision-making process concerning employees, either existing or prospective, which may have an impact on the conditions of employment, selection, or recruitment, he has or she has to provide relevant information to the employee. This is already important. Important is also that everyone, that employers have to launch an initiative to adopt a kind of code of conduct concerning the use of AI systems in the workplace environment. And they have to bring the systems in line with the law, of course, in particular regarding the protection of human dignity, private life, personal data, non-discrimination, equality between women and men, freedom of expression, universal access for persons with disabilities, workers' rights, and good administration. And for any violation of this obligation, penalties may be imposed by the Labor Inspectorate. I'm not very optimistic about the enforcement. I'm not very optimistic neither for the enforcement of the AI Act, but this is another case. But we should remain optimistic, and we should remain agile and discussing not only the case of gender biases or discrimination, but to embed, to face all these issues in a more general context and discuss about the need of a new social contract, taking into account the developments into AI society, which challenge fundamental rights, democratic values. They may be very disruptive concerning democracies, education models, labor markets, and of course, we have not yet witnessed the full power of AI. General AI is under portas in a way, and we have to prepare for it by discussing very concrete and specific issues, and not discussing very vague and not only discussing vague perceptions about AI or very general concerns. We have to rethink how, in this environment, the exercise of public and private powers has to be regulated, has to be limited. This is actually a kind of movement, the digital constitutionalism. And while thank you for your patience and attention, I have to stop here.
Thank you, Lilian, so much. It was very, very interesting. So, questions? Panayotis first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lilian, for this very, very clarifying introduction to the AI biases. This is very important to say that there are people who are reflecting on this in the international fora. I would like just to clarify if there are also regulations about non-human rights like bees, etc., and if the inclusive design that we tend to do in the design of products and services here in Syros and the University of the Aegean are considered in the AI Act and other international.
Actually, Panayoti, the AI Act was initially conceived as a product liability regulation. And you can recognize this idea, this main idea, the initial idea. Meanwhile, there was a huge discussion, huge public discourse about inserting also the elements of fairness, etc., etc. And we have now a mixed regulatory product with liability, with product safety. It's interesting to say that, for example, high-risk systems are systems that may have produced risks for safety, health, and fundamental rights. Okay. And in this case, if such systems can fall under the category of AI systems using, or also a part of the system is using AI. In this case, they may be categorized as AI systems, and they have to implement the AI Act. It's interesting to emphasize in this environment, in this audience, that AI Act is not applicable to research. That means we researchers, we are free to invent, etc., etc. But it's not applicable if research is not tested in real conditions. If we test an invention or an application or a tool in real conditions, in this case, we have to apply the AI Act. And if our product, our research product, will go into the market, then we have to design them in order to be compliant. That means research is free, but it has to take care, research will have to take care about compliance when the products enter into the market.
Thank you, Liliana, very much.
We'll discuss about it. We'll have the opportunity.
Another question? Lilian, I have recently read AI Act.
You have congratulations.
It was a hard task.
It is a hard task.
And I'm not a lawyer. And I don't understand the technical elements. Okay. But considering that European Union is committed to gender equality, what is interesting is that the word gender, I look at my notes, the word gender is recorded only twice in the text, and the word sex.
Not in the, I'm not sure in the text, perhaps it's in the preamble and the recitals.
No, it's in Article 68.
Okay.
That refers to a scientific panel of independent.
Okay. Okay, to the panel. Okay.
The word sex refers only with is recorded only with reference to biometric categorization, and when you see the restals, the phrase gender equality is recorded in restal 27, gender equality, not just equality, 48, 48, and gender balance in one of the restals at the end, 142, 165. This means, in my opinion, that gender balance or gender equality is hidden under fundamental rights.
Yes.
So
it's not. As already said when discussing with Panayoti, it's not the perception was a product safety regulation. Then we had added also these aspects of fundamental rights. Gender is perceived, is regarded as a right to non-discrimination. There is not the gender dimension as such present. And this is the case in many regulations, I must say. Especially this regulation is the approach is fundamental rights and democratic values. What is under these categories is protected. And it's also a matter of legal interpretation, okay? this can be good in some cases, because we can interpret what is meant with this in a more wide way than having to address specific provisions.
Mm-hmm.
But the discussion was not mature enough to include explicitly this approach in this regulation.
True. Moreover, let me comment on one thing. When we speak about AI and gender, we usually see gender in a binary frame, which is not true for us. Okay.
Look, if the European legislation, not this legislation concerning the identification and identifying documents, it allows member states, for example, to insert in national identities also other, not this only binary approach. But in this case, they have to be based, it has to be based on law, on a very specific national, it is perceived as a cultural and national issue, to decide on a national level if you understand this in a binary or non-binary way. But the main idea, which is dominant, let's say, in this approach, is the binary approach.
So virtual assistants are either men or women?
Virtual assistants are women, mostly saying, what can I do for you? And you say, this is, please, Alexa, please call mom, please Siri, call mom, etc.
Robots are usually men, right?
Robots, no, it depends. Robots are usually men when they have to perform something that is powerful. Robots that are quite viral, Sophia or other robots, another robot has been also presented in Thessaloniki in the last period, they are women. Mm-hmm. They can discuss, they can respond to questions, they are quite nice. Robots are men when they have to perform powerful action. Transformer.
Reproduction of gender stereotypes.
Yes. It's obvious, and it's not. It's a matter. This is this correlation between society and technology. I mean, there is a dialectic actually relation between them. Society influences technology. Perhaps technology artifacts may perpetuate and reproduce social biases, perceptions, etc. And we have to discuss it in strict correlation to each other.
True. Another question? Thank you so much.
Can I ask something? Sorry.
Venetia.
Okay, yes. Thank you so much. It was really very interesting, and apologies for my ignorance on these technical topics and issues. I found thought-provoking the proposition that the AI needs to take into account the context, because one of the major issues is that all these barriers, of course, they change, they are being replaced, they are being transformed, etc. And I was wondering, is it technically possible, and on which terms? So how can
take into account context?
Yes, been contextualized, exactly. Yes.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's one of in my approach, one of the, let's say, the technical barriers also. And that's why the question is, when are we justified to use AI? For example, let me use another example, which is the use of AI in the context of justice. there are some uses of AI in justice sector that can be accepted. But in this case, actually, we don't have AI. We don't have autonomy. We don't have inferences. If we have mostly cases that if he has not paid on time, then he has to pay a penalty. Okay, this is quite easy. But to use AI also to support, I would say, decision-making of the judge in cases of family law or other issues, or also in the administration, when you have to apply this a differentiated approach of each case. In this case, it's not acceptable, in my opinion. It's not acceptable from a legal point of view to use AI. Also for support, because due to this cognitive asymmetry, if the systems suggest a decision based on, this is also a case in the health, etc., based on thousands of judgments, and then the judge, okay, this is my case, and he or she has not the cognitive and the courage also to take a decision against the suggestion. In this case, we may have a problem. It's a technical barrier to have a contextualized process and approach. You are right. It's not easy. It's not possible. At least now.
Thank you.
I have exhausted your passage. Sorry.
No. We have one question in. Is there any discussion about the younger generation, such as children? How do they perceive the role of AI, and how do they relate to the tools and services? Can they properly distinguish between the human and the non-human factor, especially if they have not yet developed their full range of communication skills and experience?
Children, the question is too interesting, but too generic, I must say, too generic and specific at the same time. Children are regarded as vulnerable category, not in the AI Act. In the AI Act, there is no specific provision about children. There is some references to discrimination based on age. What is meant are not children, they are meant elderly people mostly, okay? And this is very important, this is very interesting. Let me say that when using AI in the context of the seek of a job for unemployed people. And in this case, we have already examples of discrimination against elderly people and women. And this, we had cases in Austria, we had cases in other member states that have used or cases of discrimination against the ethnic minorities, the famous scandal of Sideri in the Netherlands. We don't have cases with discrimination or biases against concerning children. Children are regarded as a special category in another legal act of the European Union, the Digital Services Act. In this case, it is prohibited to use data from children to profile them and make them offers concerning products or expose them to targeted advertising. This is a case that children are identified as a very vulnerable category because they lack the maturity to assess an offer, to assess a product, to assess the risks and potential threats to their rights or to their interests. I'm not sure that I have responded in an adequately manner to this question, but it's a huge issue.
Thank you, Lilian. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thanks again for invitation. Next time in Mytilene, I will try to participate online. Okay.
Welcome. So we have break for approximately 30 minutes. So stay with us.
Okay, I think we can start now.
Yep. Fine. That sounds great. Okay, super. Welcome everyone to this afternoon session on technology. I hope you can hear me all right. My name is Dr. Kai Roland Green, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Aarhus University in Denmark, and it's my pleasure to be able to lightly moderate this session this afternoon. We have one fewer presenter than is on the program due to a last-minute cancellation, so that should give us just a little bit more flexibility for hopefully some discussion towards the end. But I think if Christina, you are nearly on the point of being ready, then we can begin. Obviously, I think standard Zoom rules apply. Please keep your microphones at least off. Always lovely to see your faces. And if we have time, maybe at the end of each presentation, just shortly for a question or two, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll try to keep it to the overall discussion towards the end.
First of all, let me thank the organizer for this interesting event, for having me, and thanks to Professor Green for chairing this panel. So in the next 15 minutes, more or less, I would like to discuss with you about gender discrimination in AI from a European perspective. Gender gap is certainly not a recent or novel problem, but why now is so crucial to talk about? Because the massive dissemination of AI raises concerns about its potential, its limitations, and above all, its possible harms, especially in terms of gender bias. So, we can see that gender bias, if we take a look about to the advertisement world, gender bias is pervasive, and it was really, let's say, cruel in the past, but even today it's not so easy, as the message is even a bit more tricky, but you can see everywhere. Preparing this presentation, I came across a very interesting study, in my opinion, which was focused to address the gender gap, the gender problem in movie industry. I would like to share with you just a few data, because I think that they are quite interesting for the purpose of this presentation. So, among the 142 most influential movies featuring AI from 1920 to 2020, so basically 1 century, 86 show one or more AI researchers, so a total of 116 people. Among them, not a single influential AI movie has been directed solely by a woman. Only 9 out of 116 AI professionals were female, so 8 scientists and 1 CEO. Out of the 8 female AI scientists, 50% were presented as inferior to a man. Usually in the interaction between the creator and the creature, like in the picture you can see here, that is from a very nice movie, that is Her. Usually the creature has a female shape or female features, in this case, voice. So why is this relevant? Because the lack of female role model affect female students' uptake of STEM subjects. In another study, the so-called called Scully effect, it has been found out that nearly 2/3, so 62% of women that work in STEM say that Dana Scully, that is the very well-known X-Files scientist protagonist, served as their role model. So the thing is that the overall image of STEM professional in popular media for many years created and somehow perpetuated a cultural stereotype that show women as less likely to men to be present in STEM fields, as well as less likely to be talented, successful, and valued in these fields. So where are we the gender gap issues now at the present moment? So at the current growth rate, according to the global gender gap, we will take 132 years to eliminate the gender gap and achieve parity between men and women. Before 2020, so basically before the pandemic, the World Economic Forum estimated 100 years for gender equality. So basically, the COVID pandemic set gender equality back a generation. And this shows just how fragile the situation is. Oh, sorry. Okay. So from a legal perspective, but not strictly legal perspective, the problem arises at different levels. So as already shown in the presentation before mine, the first level is education and labor market. So the gender gaps, for example, we can see gender gaps and differences in access to and use of digital technologies, and also segregation across fields of study among women and men and girls and boys. In the labor market, the problem is the women's low participation in digital labor market, and in particular in high quality jobs. A second level, and this is the reason because AI is so discussed about this topic when it comes to AI is so crucial, because AI potentiality to reproduction, to produce a reproduction and amplification of gender bias and sexism through algorithm as a result of a stereotyped society. The third level is cybercrime. So ICT has been increasingly associated with cybercrime, which is becoming a tool, a mean to harass and harm women. But what's exactly a gender bias? An algorithmic bias can be referred to a systematic error of any kind in the outcome of algorithmic operations. So gender bias can be defined as a decision based on gender perceptions obtained from cultural experiences and social beliefs. Basically, these factors together create unwanted preferences against one group, considering their unique attributes, resulting in the basis of a systematic discrimination. So, when it comes to AI, the problem is that the increasing reliance on AI-driven technologies in the decision-making process in all fields of society challenge compliance with the human rights legal framework from a European perspective, for sure, but not only from a European perspective. So gender bias is really a socio-technical issue that needs more than technical solutions to be affected, because it's a reflection of a stereotyped and biased society. The related difficulties about this is, the first one is that a decision based on gender is not so easy to identify, even when it comes from a human brain, let alone an algorithm. And the other related difficulty is the so-called veneer of objectivity. So the idea that a machine cannot be wrong. And when we apply this technology, for example, when it comes to personal freedom in a criminal trial, this can be really a tricky problem. I will skip this because the presentation has already extensively talked about the problem of Sideri. So let's skip and talk about where do we stand in Europe at the present moment, talking from a regulatory point of view, from a legal perspective. So the first step, one starting point for sure, was self-regulation, but this creates from private sectors. But unfortunately, this creates major problems such as ethics washing, because where companies basically set their standards but do not follow them, or ethics shopping, where companies basically choose which values to use to set their standards based on what they are already doing instead of actually trying to improve their actions. Then the European Union over the last decades has worked a lot in order to build a strong core of fundamental values. That includes the principles of gender equality and non-discrimination. They are protected at multiple levels. At primary level, we have Article 2 and Article 3 of the Treaty of the European Union concerning non-discrimination and the promotion of equality between women and men, which is also perceived as a key point in order to guarantee the proper functioning of the internal market. And we have also Article 20 and 21 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union address the principle of equality before the law and the principle of non-discrimination as well. At the secondary level, we have several directives addressing the protection and promotion of gender equality and non-discrimination. But the problem they are really sectorial. So, for example, in employability, occupation and social services, work-life balance, violence against women, and domestic violence, and so on. Then we have a plenty of other measures that are the word of soft law, basically, resolutions, programs, and codes, all focused in trying to increase female participation in the ICT fields. So this legal framework, multi-level legal framework, somehow protects women against discrimination. The problem, so the critical issue, is that there are no provisions against structural discrimination, and that's exactly the one present in AI ecosystems, which is also the hardest to fight against because it is blurred under formal gender equality. The presentation, the keynote speech before has extensively talked about the AI Act, so I'm not focus a lot on this. But I want just to say that the two main goals of this regulation is the promotion of innovation for sure and the protection of fundamental rights. However, these two goals are not in all cases consistent with each other. So when it comes to gender equality, we can rely on the transparency and explainability obligations in order, and the idea of a trustworthy AI. So basically the idea that a trustworthy AI cannot be biased, okay? Or should not be, at least. But as already underlined before during the debate, the word gender is not really present in the regulation. So we have transparency obligations which basically are focused on the idea to prevent the generation of illegal outputs, even from the gender point of view. Then we have impact assessment reports, the obligation to be delivered to enforcing agency. Then we have the word gender. We can find the word gender in Article 68, paragraph 2, letter C, according to which within the scientific panel of independent experts has to be ensured fair gender and geographical representation. And we have also recital 27 and recital 165, which refers to the need to promote the diversity in the development groups, favoring gender balance. So, and I'm going to conclude my presentation. Which is the positive side of all of this? The positive side is for sure that the EU legal framework has a valuable multi-level instrument focused on the protection of the principles of non-discrimination and equality that directly impact women's rights. Moreover, there are clear efforts in AI governance to address problems related to AI-driven technologies. The negative side is that there are still gaps in the regulation that allow gender-based biases in AI to continue to be a problem. And unfortunately, even the ECJ case law, it's not very helpful at this stage. Maybe it will be in the future, but nowadays the problem is heterogeneity in the interpretation and application of EU non-discrimination legal framework. So this prevents the creation and definition of standards of non-discrimination that can be applied also to AI-driven technologies. Moreover, to date, no directives or cases deal with algorithms and gender-based discrimination. I think that is for sure about due to a lack of preliminary references. Another issue that should be not underestimated is the problem of direct discriminatory effect and the indirect discriminatory effect, because the first ones are easier to be at least identified, but the second one should not be underestimated, because this might undermine a gender equality policy aimed at tackling and fighting stereotypes and biases. About the AI Act, just a few words, is that it runs the risk of lacking effectiveness regarding fundamental rights protection, because it is really focused on prediction and prevention, but not on concrete measures that can be taken by citizens if their rights are violated by an AI system. So what does it take? Can be tricky, but the first thing is that the more equality there is between women and men, and the more equal a society gets, the more this will be mirrored in the data sets used by algorithms, or used to train the algorithms. So we need to work at different levels. Promote awareness and education. So we need to shift the narrative, improve education on AI and society. And then from this point, we can work on to to guarantee diversity in AI industry. And then from this, we can work on legal framework and all the tools necessary to act in case of violation and try also to prevent violation. And then we need strong governance, audit standards and certification in AI to create a strong and sound AI ecosystems. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thank you, Christina. Can't seem to find a way on Zoom to do the hand clapping emoji, but hopefully everyone is doing that as well. Super. Maybe we have time for just a couple of questions because we have no presentation next. So in case there's anything immediate that comes to mind, any of the attendees or panelists are welcome to stick up their hand. Maybe I just have one small one, which is it's an interesting way towards the end about the kind of the reflection of society within these algorithms or the particular society values being reflected in those algorithms. I wonder what you then think are the limits to a European approach, considering the diversity of European culture and also considering that obviously a lot of the power of these companies is contained within the United States and other kinds of countries. Do you have faith in a European-led set of policies and instruments here?
So thanks for the question. It's really interesting. So I think that we, at least from the West world, let's say the so-called civilized world, but it's not proper now. But we share somehow some common values. I'm not considering that the most powerful and the biggest, the big techs are located in the US. The idea of the European Union has happened, for example, with the GDPR. So the so-called Brussels effect. So the idea that the European Union can be a leader for legal standards. I'm not that sure that in this case can work because AI is really a complex technology. And the approach to this technology is very different from, for example, from China. We have example of the using of the AI technology for controlling people and for social scoring that in this part of the world, I mean, in Europe and in the United States are forbidden, even the AI Act, according to AI Act. So the idea that the European Union can set the standards in this case can be a bit more tricky because we don't have the, unfortunately, because the two, as I said, the two main goals of this regulation is to promote innovation, no? To try to don't let the Europe behind the two big competitors, so US and China. But I think that we started from legal framework, but we don't have an industrial background, solid industrial, sound industrial background. So I think that it would be not so easy.
Yeah, very interesting. And I suppose one could almost ask it the other way, that there's Europe as a level or as a frame, and then we're assuming, as you say, the tech giants in other countries represent this kind of higher element, but also regional diversity within Europe. I mean, I'm thinking, I'm here in Denmark, even though there's lots of interest and regulations around algorithmic governance here, because Denmark has such a big state and quite an interventionist state, you could see it being a very digitalized state. You could see it also being possibly open to more of this influence of this technology compared to other European countries. So trying to find some common ground even amongst European countries, I imagine, is quite complicated.
Yes, definitely. Even we share a common set of values. Unfortunately, the traditions and the backgrounds are not so similar, so common. And when it comes to with these technologies that are, let's say, that are full of different aspects, combine different aspects, it can be really tricky, really difficult, yes.
Yes, lots of interesting challenges. Are there any other panelists or attendees that have a question for Christina? No? Maybe I can ask another while we're waiting to see also if the next participant's tech is sorted, ready to go. But I thought it was very interesting that you had this kind of cultural dimension early on, like the films, the sense of how much we can learn from film depictions of this in terms of gender. Is that a perspective you work with to kind of draw on cultural artifacts or artistic expressions of this? Do you see value in that kind of approach?
Not really. I mean, it's not my, let's say it's not my cup of tea. But when I started to prepare this presentation, I came really across this study, and I found out that okay, I think that is a good mirror of how is the situation, and I think that present this data can be a significant piece of how how is the perception of society, because I think that movies is basically a perception of society. So and I think that the data were quite not so good from a gender perspective. So it's not really something I work usually on, but I thought that could be useful in this case to present.
Absolutely. And as you said, the education side to this and the representation side is very strong. The need for people to be inspired to work in this area, and therefore representations of various kinds matter to people's everyday.
Yes, because I mean, when it comes to program and to development of algorithms, it's not something that is, I mean, humans brain program the algorithms. So it's impossible to think that algorithms can be bias-free when the society is not bias-free. We can see in advertisement, we can see in the movies, we can see in the STEM fields, the percentage of women or girls and boys is dramatic different. So this idea that it's nothing wrong with I am humanistic, so I'm in a humanistic field, so nothing wrong, but the idea that you cannot, because you are a woman or you are a woman or a girl, you cannot, because you are going to be less talented, less successful, it's something that is not acceptable. So if we don't fix this before, it's impossible, even through a regulation. I mean, think that a regulation can fix something like that, it's utopia, in my opinion. A legal framework can give, specifically in this kind of field that is changing in a way, it's a fast pace, so it's something that is the law is difficult to be in line with it. So think that I think that a proper legal framework can indicate the right way. But then we need to work on different levels in order to achieve that specific goal.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes, Alicia?
Okay, thank you so much for this interesting presentation. I was thinking that one of the problems would be probably that the awareness of women who are in STEM science is less concerning gender bias than in, human or social science. And I think that it has to do with the fact that we are considering science to be more neutral than other topics. It's a topic that we need somehow to address. Of course, we know that in STS, Science Technology Studies, and History and Philosophy of Science, that science is nothing but neutral. But on the other hand, this is the way that we are educated. So many people, many women who are nowadays in STEM science, they think that there is no problem at all. That there is something that is outside their, their discipline and their profession and so on. And I think that's a bit problematic, and we have to think more about it.
Yes, for sure, science is neutral. The problem is the people that work on it. I mean that science itself is, of course, is neutral. I'm really happy that the data shows that an increasing participation of women and girls at STEM field. And they don't think at all that it's a problem, but unfortunately, the idea and is changing, luckily, that STEM field is for everyone. So everyone that has this kind of attitude can participate.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Can I just check? So Mario, are you in the room and ready to go with your presentation, or are you having connection issues?
It seems that there are some technical problems and Mario does not respond. But we have with us Professor Elena Theodoropoulou. Elena Theodoropoulou is, she's the scientific director of the work package, of the specific work package, and probably we can proceed with the closing up of the session with the help of Professor Theodoropoulou.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Professor Kancsa. Hi to all of you. I am very glad to host you at the University of the Aegean on behalf of our work package, of course, but anyway, on behalf of the University of the Aegean as well. And so we are very honored and glad to have you with us participating in this occasion. For us, it's not important in the frame of the ERUA project to have a such conference. It's important because, as Professor Kancsa knows better than me, it's part of our university politics, gender politics, and we are very interested in the many phases of gender issues that we have to deal with every day in our everyday university life, but of course as in our life as citizens. And for Greece and for our university is a question which burns, and how we can get all the due opportunities to female persons. It's something that preoccupies us a lot. And I think that this occasion, this conference, is a very good sign, a very good specimen about our common efforts in ERUA to deal with such issues, because as you probably know, knows it's one of our main thematics, is based on our main shared values in ERUA Alliance, and this ERUA project will be integrated in the whole ERUA project. This conference is among our shared products that will be a base for further activities and further collaborations. So thank you once again for your participation, and I hope that in future occasions we will have the joy to host you again. Thank you, Professor Kancsa.
Thank you, Professor Petropoulou. And I would like to ask Carola Green, as the head of the ERUA Scientific Committee, whether you would like to comment on the significance of gender in this alliance.
Yeah, thank you for that, Benicia. I mean, for my full disclosure, I've come to the end of my tenure as the chair of the scientific committee for ERUA. But yes, I think it's been clear that this is a really interesting and valuable topic. And as we continue to consider what the future of higher education looks like, we definitely recognize that entrenched gender problems are things that all contexts and all disciplines must be facing. And I think it's such a distinctive subject that this conference has reached to, and we also, it's not a coincidence, I think, that the universities that come together as part of ERUA and ERUA are also universities that have histories of mobilization of students in an alternative kind of way, that are students who do activist work, who are interested in social issues and the responsiveness of that as much as they are their own education. And I think it's really important that we have platforms like this that are able to bridge those things together, so students also feel that their desire to change the world, their activist sensibilities, their change maker politics are things that are embraced by universities and new pedagogies. And that's always been, I think, the shining light that ERUA represents. And it's fantastic that gender's been on the specifically on the agenda, thanks to this work package and this stream of work. So thank you for all that. I think we are. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, thank you, Kai. I think it's really important, and also it's a topic of study for many of the universities which belong into this alliance. And it's a kind of axis or parameter that can connect different disciplines and different topics. And we have seen during these 2 days the importance of gender, also for sciences, AA and technology and other science beyond humanities and social science. Yeah, but I think that we have Mario Valori with us, and so we can close up the conference with Mario's presentation. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. This is a very problem because in Italy we have red alert for meteor, so with rain, storm, and so on in my region, so I have a lot of problem. But okay, can you see me now? Perfect. I try to share, and I hope the connection can get. I have prepared a video just to be sure to send to you all my works. Okay. Can you see this? Send.
A very good morning to all, and thank you for being with us today. I'd like to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to our gracious host, the University of the Aegean, and to the European Reform University Alliance as a whole for giving us this valuable opportunity to reflect on and discuss gendered innovation perspectives and approaches. We've now arrived at the fourth session, which focuses specifically on technology, and I think it's quite interesting to point out that out of the 4 planned presentations in this panel, 3 are centered around artificial intelligence. And after me, we shall delve into the realm of open data, a sector distinct from AI, yet one that resonates and connects with it. There's no doubt that artificial intelligence, so basically big data plus machine learning, is the hottest topic right now. While this points to a certain polarization in the scenario, the significance of the technology and its pervasive influence across various sectors demand that we analyze it as comprehensively as we can and explore its full implications. Clearly, artificial intelligence is an evolving field with significant potential yet to be fully realized, alongside numerous challenges that require thorough analysis and resolution. The 2 previous talks both explored the issue of gender bias, approaching it from distinct perspectives. The first shed light on the pressing issue of women's underrepresentation in the IT sector, highlighting the problems that arise from this disparity and proposing solutions to address them. In contrast, the second delved into the complexities of eliminating gender biases in artificial intelligence development, presenting various strategies and best practices to ensure more inclusive and equitable systems. These are definitely 2 key points in today's debate, and we simply can't ignore them. However, I would like to bring up another topic that, in my opinion, deserves attention, even though it might not be as broad or high profile as the ones we've discussed. Having examined the prejudices that artificial intelligences can perpetuate, I would now like to turn my attention to the biases to which they themselves may be subjected. In fact, there are significant preconceptions, whether well-founded or not, about how people see and think about AI. This is quite a serious theme, since it's evident that the success of any technological innovation, particularly in its early stages, depends not only on the outcomes it delivers, but also on how it is perceived by the public and the degree of trust it is able to inspire. And artificial intelligence is particularly vulnerable to this, given the high level of media attention and the lofty expectations associated with it. In the next 15 minutes, I would like to discuss some biases within the translation sector. Specifically, I will share data on how translations produced by or with the help of artificial intelligence were assessed by both a general reading audience and a group of language and translation students. Please note that in certain instances, the translations were in fact produced by professional translators without external contributions of any kind. However, readers did not always receive correct information about how translations were made. Collected data marked discrepancies in the assessment methods and the manner in which the text is approached, which can be understood only by acknowledging the presence of a common and deep-seated bias against texts produced by artificial intelligence. I should stress right away that this study did not initially take a gendered approach. Gender was one of many aspects examined during data collection, along with age, educational background, and IT competence. However, my presence here today is no coincidence, as we shall observe that gender emerges as one of the most influential factors. Before diving into the data analysis, let me first take a minute to explain what neural machine translation is and how it works. In truth, we might encounter difficulties even when considering the concept of translation alone. Actually, the idea of what it really means to translate a text is a complicated issue that's been tackled countless times throughout history, yet it still defies a clear and complete definition. On that note, I'd like to quote the words of Professor William Haas, a philologist from the University of Manchester whose insight is far more authoritative than mine. Professor Haas's words strike a balance between being enlightening and absolute. The stark contrast between familiar and baffling, coupled with the recognition of the very possibility as a mystery, gives us a clear sense of just how challenging it is to pin down what exactly translation entails. In this already complicated area, machine translation emerges as a specific branch of natural language processing that looks at how machines manage and engage with the task of translation. The journey has been far from straightforward, starting with the early idea of a machine dictionary, moving through rule-based and statistical systems, and finally arriving at 2014, when neural machine translation burst onto the scene and completely transformed the field, swiftly becoming the state of the art. The deep neural networks encode source text as dense vectors within a continuous space. This allows them to capture and preserve the syntactic and semantic relationships between words, making it easier to transfer these connections to the target language while maintaining their meaning and structure. That's basically how neural machine translation works. However, I want to clear up the idea that this is some overly complicated process, impossible to tackle without tons of computer skills and years of tech experience. The fact is, with a bit of programming know-how, it's actually quite manageable to develop these systems. I, for instance, do not possess a background in engineering or computer science. When I chose to pursue a specialization in AI for the humanities after completing my MA in cultural history, I had only a basic knowledge of programming. Yet, within a year, I developed an AI system for translating classical Latin, which became the focus of my final dissertation. The most complex and time-consuming task, though, was not the programming itself, but the creation of a high-quality text corpus to train my neural network effectively. Before moving on, it's important to take a moment to discuss how one might evaluate the quality of an artificial translation system. This is a difficult issue, as translation in general, regardless of its source, lacks clear objective criteria. Often a good translation is achieved by balancing conflicting elements. Fluency and faithfulness to the original text, for example, can be at odds, and focusing on one often means compromising the other. It's also essential to highlight that any evaluation must be contextual, depending on the purpose of the translation. Currently, when needed, machine translation quality is assessed using specific metrics that evaluate similarity based on word order, semantic coherence, and context, and these methods have varying degrees of acceptance. However, the reliability of these metrics is unclear, which is why human evaluations are often sought, asking experts or native speakers to judge fluency, accuracy, and idiomatic expression. After this extended introduction, which I hope has been helpful, especially for those unfamiliar with linguistics and computer science, we can now turn to the experiment. The study consisted of 600 participants, all native speakers of Italian with a strong command of English, corresponding to at least a C1 level according to the Common European Framework. Of these, 200 were students and recent graduates from language and translation master's programs, while the remaining 400 were passionate readers who frequently engage with literature in its original language. Although I don't have time to elaborate on the participant selection process, I can assure you that considerable effort was made to assemble a group that was truly representative and competent in reading and translation. Each participant was given 5 different texts, each containing a few translated paragraphs from famous works by significant British detective fiction writers from the early 20th century. You should have additional details displayed on your screen. The choice of detective fiction was intentional, as it is a widely recognized and clear genre, usually less complex in terms of style, making it easier both for the neural networks to translate and for the participants to evaluate. Each translation was accompanied by the complete original text of the work, as well as an official Italian translation published by a recognized publishing house. We also gave them access to the Oxford English Dictionary, bilingual Italian-English dictionaries, and all necessary materials for note-taking. Our goal was to provide every possible convenience and resource to ensure that they could perform their evaluations in the best possible way. The instructions we provided were quite simple. Each participant was asked to carefully examine the AI-produced translations, identify any areas of weakness, and propose improvements regarding vocabulary, style, tone, or any other text-related elements they felt were important. Participants had a maximum of 4 hours to complete the task. Some worked in pairs or groups of up to 4 people, as you can see in the data provided on your screen. Before starting, each participant attended an orientation session where we explained the task and asked them to complete a short questionnaire about their IT skills and any previous experience or opinions they had on AI-assisted translation. Given that our objective was to identify any potential biases toward AI-based or AI-assisted translations, not all information was disclosed to the participants. They knew that for each original text, they were provided with an AI-generated translation designated as the text to be evaluated and an official translation by a publishing house intended for reference or comparison. The situation was more complex than it initially appeared. Of the 5 translations provided, only 3 were produced by AI. The others were in fact crafted by a university professor who collaborated on this study. Thus, each participant unknowingly evaluated 3 AI-generated translations alongside 2 human translations, disguised as AI-generated outputs. Furthermore, our AI-generated translations were all created without any human intervention. However, when presenting them to participants, we labeled 2 of the 5 translations as AI-assisted translations, implying that a human had reviewed and edited the AI-generated text to ensure accuracy and quality. These translations were randomly selected to avoid biasing the sample and were evenly distributed across the 5 texts. In short, participants believed they were reviewing 2 AI-assisted and 3 AI-based translations, with 5 human-produced translations as controls. All translations were labeled accordingly to facilitate easy distinction. However, in reality, they only had 4 AI-based translations, 1 human translation disguised as AI, and the labels distinguishing the evaluation and control texts were intentionally misleading. Now let us turn to the results. As expected, there's a strong bias against translations thought to be AI-generated. The results of the participants' evaluations, grouped by label, are displayed on the screen. Remember that the labels were randomly assigned, with about 60% of the text in each group being human translations. Still, AI-based translations scored lower than AI-assisted ones, and those scored lower than the translations believed to be done by professionals. The differences in these scores are statistically significant and cannot be attributed to mere chance. So far, nothing has been too surprising. However, we analyzed the data further to see whether this bias was equally present across all participants or if certain groups were more prone to it. While we found some interesting insights, most of them are beyond the scope of this conference, so there's no need to go into them now. Let us now turn to the core of our discussion. On the screen, you can see the same graph as before, but this time the scores for the 3 groups of translations are broken down by gender. As you can observe, women generally displayed a lower tendency to succumb to the cognitive bias under discussion. While there are still differences in the scores which suggest that the bias is not entirely absent, these deviations are noticeably less significant compared to those seen in male participants. I find this first point quite significant. However, we went deeper in our analysis. From the initial interviews, we noticed that women generally reported lower IT skills and expressed more skepticism toward AI translations. You can see the data on these 2 factors on the screen. So, while there is indeed an initial prejudice against the idea that a machine can translate a narrative text, our experiment proves that this bias can be overcome when there are a concrete task to be accomplished. Another notable difference lies in how initial prejudices toward neural machine translation were articulated. While most men attempted to explain their skepticism by citing technical reasons, often accompanied by notable errors and inaccuracies, women tended to frame their concerns around a more elevated and idealized conception of literature, one which, in their view, precludes machines from achieving satisfactory results. This final observation sparked an idea that we sought to explore further. The experiment itself was conducted across 20 separate sessions over the course of a semester for logistical and organizational reasons that are easy to envision. After observing the different ways participants expressed their skepticism of machine translation, we decided to adjust the initial briefing in some sessions, replacing the 5-minute introduction with a longer, more detailed explanation of how neural machine translation works. By the end of the 20 sessions, 6 were preceded by the brief presentation, 7 by a 20 to 30-minute explanation of neural machine translation mechanisms, and the final 7 by a more in-depth, hour-long technical presentation, complete with slides outlining more complex formulas and concepts. While not a formal lesson in computer engineering or computational linguistics, the differences in the depth and complexity of this last approach were nonetheless significant. The results became evident quickly. In the initial questionnaire, used to gather information before the test began, men who received the technical presentation showed a partial reduction in their initial biases, whereas women's attitudes remained largely unchanged. By the end of the experiment, however, women's evaluations of AI-based and AI-assisted translations improved, while men's evaluations stayed mostly stable. The observed changes were both significant and widespread among participants, rendering the possibility of mere coincidence unlikely. However, the underlying causes for this phenomenon remain unclear. In my view, the initial in-depth analysis, if not sufficiently extensive or grounded in prior expertise, tends to reinforce pre-existing biases. Those inclined to attribute the issues to technical aspects find reassurance in the examination of the computational mechanisms, whereas individuals who are skeptical for other reasons feel validated in their perspective, perceiving the focus on these technicalities as misdirected. Nevertheless, this interpretation is purely speculative and lacks empirical support. The final data presents greater challenges in terms of justification. One possible explanation is that a technical introduction may highlight the intricacy of the translation mechanisms, thereby leading to a higher appreciation during the evaluation of the resulting texts. However, even in this instance, we remain firmly within the realm of conjecture, where my hypothesis holds no more weight than any other. There's a lot more I could add, but with time running out, I'll move to my conclusion. Our study, which was quite thorough, shows that gender biases exist when it comes to how people evaluate AI and its outputs. What's clear is that having more expertise in IT helps reduce, if not completely remove, these biases. This should encourage us to invest more in STEM education, especially for groups that currently have fewer opportunities or show less interest in these areas. The true value of this study is in the observation that women seem more likely than men to set aside biases and evaluate the results more objectively. Of course, a study like ours, which is focused on a specific sector and region, cannot be seen as universally applicable. It is possible that factors other than gender contribute to this outcome. Additionally, this positive attitude is more likely shaped by social and educational processes rather than being an innate biological trait. Regardless of the underlying causes, there is little doubt that under equal conditions, women appear to be more adept at making objective evaluations of artificial intelligence and its outputs when presented with concrete and factual data. This observation warrants further attention, both as academic evidence to inform future studies and as a potential tool for encouraging greater female participation in the IT field and related sectors. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that the recent European debate has been focused on establishing standards and frameworks aimed at developing a human-centered AI. Objective evaluations in this context are an invaluable resource that must not be overlooked or underutilized. Thank you all very much for staying with us, particularly given the late hour. I appreciate your attention and look forward to your feedback and insights.
Super, thank you, Mario. Excellent. So our schedule is all over the place this afternoon, but we still have a little bit of time for questions for Mario and or inputs from other panelists. So yes, Katerina.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I really like the part when you refer to automatic translation given from machines. I'm not an IT expert, but I can tell that I have some experience with translation, especially from France to Greek and the other way around. France, if I thought France, excuse me. So basically, I would like to ask you, I know how difficult it is for a machine to understand every aspect of to interpret some connotations of meaning that we use in another frame of everyday language or whatever. So I was wondering how the meta universe now that is very in fashion and they collect our data from everyday communication with other people. Do you think that this might help AI, the automatic translation, in order to give the proper interpretation of messages? Because as a user, I can tell that sometimes when I use those machines to help myself, I can see that automatically the machine translate something that is not very clear in masculine genre and not in feminine, and I have to do corrections. In any way, what do you think about that? Is something that can fix at some point with all the
Okay, this is a very big questions and very lot of things. But for the first, I would like to tell to you that machine translation is it's not a very recent field. As you can see, is from at least 75, 18 years old years ago, but in the last 10, 12 years, we have do a lot of progress. So it's possible that as other part of AI translation, object and the production, we have a lot of enhancing quality. The problem of the context is a very big problem, also because the translation we have two languages to take out, the language of origin and the language of destination. And normally, artificial intelligence used English as a pivotal language. So this is another problem because, for example, as you have told, from French to Greek or vice versa, there is a pivotal language, so there is in reality two different passages, from Greek to English, from English to French, or from other language. Other differences that are quite important is grammar, and the grammar is different for English, for example, have a very simple grammar. Greek is more complex, also Italian, French, also Romance language are very different, and not to speak for the problem we can have with Japanese or with Chinese, with language that have a very different structure from our language, and this is a problem. But I think that artificial intelligence have a great space for conquest another dimension. For example, normally we can think about a object in 2-3 dimensions. I can make a drawing and I can try to imagine this in 3 dimensions, also if it is on a paper, so it is bidimensional. artificial intelligence can reasoning in a lot of dimension. A dense value of a term is about 100 dimension. So it's very difficult to understand for us what is the mechanism of the neural machine translation. But I think that we have a lot of space for having a better result, not only in the translation, in the mechanical translation, like a list, like normal messages and so on, but also in literature or so on. For example, my final dissertation is about classical Latin. And the most important thing, as we have seen also in other context, is the data set for training. Because if I use a good data set, the results are overwhelming. But the problem for translation is that there is not a definite translation. The best translation of the last of today, it's quite different from the best translation of 1980. So we must have a data set that is quite in evolution. And this is a problem, but also an opportunity. I hope that we can find a space to have quality data and to use this and to produce this in a sort of virtuous circle. I hope. This is my opinion, but as I can see, I think this is possible, but I'm not an engineering, so I don't know what is the very difficult in the technical aspects of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, I think it was, yeah, it's very interesting. I have a thought, but I'll go to you, Vinicia, first.
Okay, thank you so much. I was wondering whether you could elaborate a bit more about the difference between translation and interpretation. For example, the job of interpretation is to stay close to the syntax of the grammar, to the meaning of the text. Translation is in many ways a new text. It's a cultural translation. It's about rhythm. It's about the kind how you use the language, not only that the language of translation. And I was wondering whether, you know, AI is more close to interpretation than translation.
For now, AI is more in the field of interpretation, but we have, but sometimes we have some experiment that come in the other side of the fields and try to use this. For example, I have doing work with the poetry of Edmund Spenser. And I have used artificial intelligence to translate into Italian for seeing what is the result. And if I translate only one poetry, I have a translation, a single translation, quite good, not excellent, but a single translation, a good translation. If I give to the complete collection of poems, there are differences in the single poems from the last translation, the translation already realized. Well, this is because I see that maybe there is some repetition in the whole text and try to add an artistic value, a sort of artistic value, by changing some terms, by trying to be homogeneous and so on. Of course, this is not the this is not appear in Google Translate or in Chat GPT or similar. You must use very good e-translation that are realized just for translation, not more generalistic system. But I think that in the next 5-10 years, we can have also quite good result in literature. I don't know if sometimes we can find the quality of a professional translator. This is it's quite different, but I hope that it may be possible. I hope that I like to read, so I want to read all the text that I desire, and now I have a lot of text from different languages that I cannot understand, from Russian, from Japan, or similar. And for the publishing sector, a lot of these texts cannot be translated because there is a problem of money. Marketing. I cannot translate if I am a publisher a text that will be buy, but 5, 10, 500 people all around the globe. So it's not correct from a financial point of view. But with AI, this is not anymore a problem. For example, for a work, I must use some Japanese text, some Japanese like novel, but there is no translation in every other languages. And so I use my AI to translate them. It's not a very good translation, but it's quite sufficient for my scope. And this is a very good solution for now.
Thank you.
Yes, I thought it was interesting, Mario, that you took away from part of your conclusions and implications for the study was the need for more women to be have STEM education and have influence in STEM, because I can completely see why that's a positive outcome of the more objective judgments that you described that they made in the translation context. But it also struck me that this idea that women have a stronger ability to identify what you talked about, this kind of elevated idea of literature, sort of like a more nuanced approach to the literature that means they can identify more easily, if I understand your conclusions correctly, whether something has been AI translated versus not, which sort of suggests to me that there should be, in a way, more of a role for people from cultural studies and literary backgrounds in this domain, exactly because translation is something that, as Benicio has been, speaking about as well, is either an interpretive act on the basis of something literary and narrative, or it's more a mechanistic, how is this understanding translated across? So yes, I thought it was interesting that you came to that conclusion. And there seems to be a lot more to be done in translation as a term and the influence of that in this process.
The debate about the technical or the literary atmosphere or so on of the translation is quite long over centuries. But I think that from my studies that the people who had literary, artistic, humanistic background have a more poetic vision of the translation. So maybe from one part, they are more skeptical about the possibility of a mechanical translation. But in our studies, I can see that women and men can do can have a humanistic background, as me, for example. But women have more biases, more initial biases, but can go further, can try to accept that mechanical translation, a sort of mechanical translation, can do a good job. And it's not, it's more difficult for men. I don't know if this is a problem in participants. Maybe it's possible. We have 600 participants, so it's a good number, but it's not a huge number. So, and our participant is all Italian, is all from our university. So it's difficult to see this as a complete model of all the world. But I think maybe it's also a problem of education. If we education the girl to be more modest, to be more educated, more polite, or similar. Maybe this is a forma mentis that they can use also about evaluating the output of machine translation. Maybe this is an hypothesis. I don't think that there is a very biological specimen from this difference, but this is only an hypothesis, I repeat.
Would you say that you're broadly optimistic about the future of translation in this regard? It sounds like you were seeing a lot of the positives of the capacity of this technology to support translation.
Yeah, I am optimistic about all the AI sector. I think that maybe it's possible that in 3-4 decades, AI doing work and the humanity cannot must not work. Can be AI product everything, and we can dedicate themselves our pleasure, sport, literature, humanities, and so on. This is a hopeful future, but I don't know if I can see it or not. Maybe.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't know if she is still here and able to respond, but I'd be interested, Christina, to know whether your work leaves you with a sense of optimism in this regard. Maybe it's a closing short conversation we can have together, because it sounds as if Mario is on the side of positivity and optimism in this area, but I would imagine for you, Christina, working in more of the policy field, that this feels a bit more like an uphill struggle. I don't know if you are still in the room to respond to that, or whether you've stepped away. And perhaps while I'm maybe waiting for that, yes.
No, I think that's a really interesting point. And a few years ago, the anthropologist Paul Rabinoff, he has written an article, and the title of this article was Technoscience. It is a misery or condolences. So it's not neither good nor bad. It depends on. So the context, I think, it's really important for the use of technoscience, of technology, including also AI. So it needs to be shown how the world will be in 30, 40 years, I think.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, and it would be interesting to know on a straw poll whether people do have a sense of optimism or not about it. But I think it's really great that we have both voices and perspectives. I'm assuming that Christina cannot hear us, so here she is. Hey, excellent. You're muted, Christina, but if you'd like to come in on this, that would be excellent.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Excellent. I don't know, did you hear my question? Maybe you'd stepped away at some point.
Sorry, no, I missed the network for a few minutes. Maybe I missed your question. I'm sorry.
That's absolutely fine. I think it's in the last few minutes together. Mario had expressed quite a lot of optimism about the future in relation to the AI revolution and its possibilities for us becoming more creative, having time to do things rather than work, from his context. And I was interested in whether your work and the policy environment left you with similar optimism, or whether you'd like to end on any positive or critical note in this area.
In my opinion, definitely the artificial intelligence can be a breakthrough technology, which can give us, if properly regulate and use and not misuse, great opportunities and several benefits. Health, for example, healthcare field, and so on. We need to be very carefully in using this technology, and the message for people should be positive, because I think that people are scared about artificial intelligence, and we need to be sure that mainly the giant techs and the big techs use their power and their position to give a good example in using, and not threat workers, for example, and adopt policies that are human friendly, let's say.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. Very, very valuable points. Mario, did you have any final word you wanted to express, or have you said what you wished to?
No. I think that my is just an hope. I think that artificial intelligence is can be the most explosive discovered behind agriculture and writing, but I don't know what the future is, and what possibility we can have. Maybe we can use this in the good way, maybe not. And the present is not so it's not so optimistic, but maybe it's good to be a little optimistic, I think.
Yes, we seem to have a shared
I try
sense.
to be
yeah.
Present is all we have.
Yes.
Obviously, we must be careful about how we use and manage artificial intelligence. This is obvious, but I believe that artificial intelligence is potentially the greatest human discovery after agriculture and writing. Maybe this is my opinion, of course.
Well, I think we're not going to solve it, hey, this afternoon. But yeah, thank you very much, both of you, for your inputs and for working with our slightly mad schedule this afternoon. Vinicia, do you have anything you would like to say in closing, or are we wrapping up? I think we've had our goodbyes from everybody. So just to say thank you all for taking the time this afternoon to come and talk about this together, and we wish you a lovely end to the week and end to the conference.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.